Simultaneous Transmigration, unstoppable from the enemy multiverse. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 351, Seiya, the extraordinary power of the scientific world is me. There's one thing I'm quite curious about. What kind of organization are you? Who is your boss? What are your goals? Vermouth relaxed as she looked at the bound Curacao. Clearly, in her eyes, the only real threat was Curacao. As for Seiya, even though he was a gifted young man with a high IQ, he was still only a 7-year-old. He posed little threat to her. With your abilities, once you're brought back to the organization, you'll likely be exposed to some core secrets soon, so it's safe to share some information. Our organization has global reach and substantial assets, secretly manipulating numerous leads and individuals in the political, economic, and scientific circles of this country and indeed the world. As for our organization's purpose, I only partially understand it, to explore the mysteries of the essence of life. As for its deeper purpose, even I don't know. I don't need to tell you who our boss is. When you return with us, I'm sure the boss will meet you in person, and you'll know everything then. Hearing Vermouth's words, Seiya sighed softly. He had originally thought that Vermouth, as a core member, should know more, but unfortunately, what she said was of little value to Seiya. Previously, he had planned to play along, letting Jin and his men take him back to the Black Organization's headquarters and then destroy them all. But realizing that if Jin and the others took him away, Curacao would be killed, and that his recent abduction had already caused such a major commotion within the Suzuki group, Seiya knew he should call it a day. I had hoped to gain more useful clues, but what a shame. Hearing Seiya's words, Vermouth's keen intuition suddenly sensed danger. Regardless of whether Seiya was her target or not, she immediately raised her gun and fired. Bang! But then, a moment later, she was stunned. Though it was a close-range shot, the small figure in front of her dodged it with incredible speed, and the next second, an elbow struck her in the abdomen. Vermouth, struck in the stomach, felt a sharp pain, and the next second, her body was smashed against the metal wall of the hanging basket as if hit by a truck. Until the moment she fainted, Vermouth could not understand how a 7-year-old like Seiya could possess such extraordinary skills. And with such explosive power, let alone a 7-year-old, even a world-renowned strongman would probably be no match for it. Curacao, freed from her restraints, looked on with a look of similar astonishment as Vermouth, knocked unconscious by Seiya's blow. She had a certain impression of Vermouth. While her skills weren't as impressive as hers, she was still a killer within the organization, and an ordinary adult was no match for her. But just now, she couldn't even withstand a single blow from Seiya, as if she were the 7-year-old child before him. Squeak, as the mechanical claws pierced the metal, and as Vodka commanded the helicopter to rise higher, the immense pulling force caused the surrounding metal to creak under the weight, and with a shaky jolt, it began to break free from the Ferris wheel's main support. If the entire Ferris wheel basket broke free, there would be no escape for them, trapped in the air. So, after being freed from her restraints, Curacao kicked open the iron door of the gondola. Then, looking at Seiya, she extended her hand and said, "Seiya, I'll get you out of here. Otherwise, once their helicopter takes off, we'll be completely at their mercy." Although they were currently nearly 100 meters above the ground, Curacao was confident in her abilities. She had previously managed to leap across the elevated overpass while being pursued by a Kaishuchi and a Murotoru, and now, on this 100-meter high Ferris wheel, she could easily navigate it, even with Seiya, a child. "It's useless, Sister Curacao. You heard the gunfire outside earlier. Their helicopter is equipped with heavy weaponry. If we leave this gondola now, they'll likely fire upon us in anger. Do you have the confidence to dodge their machine gun fire on such steep terrain like a Ferris wheel?" Upon hearing Seiya's words, Curacao fell silent. Indeed, while she was confident in her abilities, it wouldn't be a problem on flat ground with obstacles, but on this steep, nearly 100-meter high slope, she was more likely to be shot to pieces before she could get far. and even if she were confident, she couldn't risk taking a child like Seiya with her. Don't worry, leave everything to me. Sister Kurosawa, you stay in this gondola. This woman named Vermouth seems very important to the organization, so as long as you don't leave the gondola, they shouldn't dare to fire at you. Kurosawa was initially unsure of Seiya's plans, but when Seiya reached the gondola door, Kurosawa was about to speak up to stop him when she heard the young man speak. Didn't you believe I was a supernatural being with memories of past lives? Now, I'll prove to you that in this world of science, supernatural powers truly exist. Reaching the gondola door, Seiya nimbly flipped onto the gondola, then grasped the grappling cable that held it. Jin and the others, aboard the helicopter, naturally noticed Seiya's every move. Chianti initially mistook the target for Kurosawa and was about to snipe him, but quickly realized his height didn't match Kurosawa's. What's that brat planning on doing? Is he naively trying to pry the grappling hook apart with his bare hands? Chianti scoffed at Seiya, who was gripping the cable. Only Jin, biting his cigarette, felt a nagging sense of unease. Vodka released the robotic arm and temporarily ascend. While Jin's reason for this sudden command was unclear, Vodka, as Jin's loyal subordinate, was known for his unwavering obedience. Just as Vodka released the robotic arm and prepared to raise the helicopter, Seiya grabbed the retracting grappling hook cable. Jin and the others were piloting a modified attack helicopter, its kinetic energy easily enough to lift a small truck. But soon, Jin, Chianti and the others were shocked, because the helicopter they were riding in shook violently, and the rising helicopter was actually pulled by a powerful force. Chapter 352 Monster. The Frightened Black Organization. Vodka, what the hell are you doing? Fly properly. At first, Chianti thought the helicopter's shaking was due to Vodka's mishandling. But soon, when Vodka explained that he'd cranked the helicopter to maximum power, but it seemed to be hooked to something heavy and wouldn't lift off, both Jin and Chianti were stunned. What did that kid do? He can't just grab the cable and the helicopter won't lift off. This is outrageous. It's impossible. We're not filming a superhero movie. What kind of monster is that kid? Hearing Chianti's outrageous outbursts, Jin's expression darkened. Just like Chianti had said, he couldn't believe such a ridiculous thing could happen. A 7-year-old child could pull a helicopter with a tensile strength of several tons through brute force. How could he even be considered human? But seeing is believing. The helicopter wasn't far from the Ferris wheel's gondola, and Jin was certain he didn't see the hook stuck anywhere else, but simply held by the imp Cohen. Snipe that imp. The Black Organization's goal was to capture Seiya alive and recruit him into their service, so he shouldn't have been a target for sniping. However, the scene unfolding before his eyes was too unbelievable, so Jin ordered Cohen to snipe Seiya, to see if he was human or demon. Let me do it. I want to see what this imp is, Chianti said, raising a sniper rifle and aiming the scope at Seiya's head. Jin didn't intervene. After all, his sniping skills were comparable to Cohen's, both top-tier snipers with ranges exceeding 600 yards. Furthermore, at the distance, Chianti had no chance of missing. Bang! A resounding gunshot echoed through the night. Fueled by the flames and gunpowder, a bullet shot out of the gun barrel at astonishing speed, striking Seiya squarely on the forehead. As she pulled the trigger, Chianti's lips curled slightly. A relentless killer, she cared little whether her victims were women or children. Whenever she sniped a target, she loved to admire their heads exploding like watermelons. Initially, Chianti had expected her target to be like her usual victims, a bewildered mess, before she blew her head off and lay dead in a pool of blood. But then, her expression, which had once been a slight smile, froze. Even her anticipation and triumph gradually gave way to fear. As if sensing Chianti's expression, Seiya, standing atop the gondola, hadn't fallen to the ground in response to the gunshot. So Jin immediately looked at Chianti with a serious expression and asked, "What happened? With your sniping skills, you can't miss at this distance, right?" But Chianti, facing Jin's question, looked up at him with a look of horror and said incredulously, "No, I didn't miss. This is insane. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that someone in this world could catch a bullet from a heavy sniper rifle with their bare hands." Jin's first thought was that Chianti was mentally ill, to even say such a thing. But when he saw the horrified expression on the usually mad Chianti's face, he suddenly felt that Chianti was telling the truth. Reaching for Chianti's sniper rifle, Jin was just about to see what kind of monster the other person was when he caught sight of Seiya through the scope. As if sensing his gaze, he tilted his head slightly towards him, a faint smile forming. Then, Jin saw Seiya show him the sniper bullet he had just caught. The originally conical bullet had now transformed into discus-like discus, as if struck by a hard object. After toying with the coin-like fragments, Jin saw Seiya suddenly flick his finger, sending the bullet fragments flying towards them. Almost as soon as Seiya deflected the shrapnel, Jin felt an inexplicable sense of imminent doom. Driven by a sense of urgency and instinct, he instantly averted his eyes from the scope. Almost instantly, with a sharp snap of glass, the fragments of bullet pierced through Jin's sniper scope. Even after piercing the sniper's scope, the bullet fragments, still with undiminished force, pierced the metal of the helicopter behind Jin. Seeing a streak of blood on Jin's cheek, Kirito, whose sniper rifle had been taken away, was clearly still unaware of what had just happened. Beside her, Koen, who had also witnessed the scene through the scope, was utterly terrified and collapsed to the ground. As a veteran assassin, Koen possessed a formidable mental fortitude, believing he had seen enough to withstand any setbacks. But just then, Koen suddenly realized how naive he had been. If the bullet fragments deflected by the opponent's fingers had been aimed at him instead of Jin, he would have been dead by now. Kirito was right. This kid was simply not human. Koen had never seen him catch bullets with his bare hands before, and he had even assumed Kirito was too young to be fooled by his tricks. But he had also witnessed what Jin had just witnessed. This opponent was undoubtedly a true monster, not some charlatan-like kendo kid. The bullet fragments that sprang from his fingers rivaled the speed of gunpowder, piercing even an armored helicopter. What the hell was this if not a monster? Jin, having nearly been killed, was still terrified, but compared to the terrified Korn and Kirito, he was clearly more resilient. Realizing that Seiya was no ordinary imp, no longer even human, Jin decisively raised his sniper rifle and fired at the cable connecting their helicopter. As the cable was severed by the sniper rifle, the helicopter, previously being towed, slowly rose under Vodka's control. Seiya, perched atop the gondola, felt the sudden loss of tension on the cable and the helicopter's gradual ascent, but he smiled with a lingering smile, saying, "Since we're already here, there's no rush to leave." Chapter 353, Is your organization worthy enough to cooperate with me? Seeing the broken cable in his hand, Seiya immediately gave a powerful backstomp, leaving a deep footprint on the Ferris wheel's gondola as his body shot out like a cannonball. After effortlessly leaping several meters, Seiya swung the cable Jin had just broken, looping it around the helicopter's frame and using the force to pull himself into the helicopter. If they hadn't experienced what had just happened, Jin and the others would have been delighted to see their target voluntarily surrender. However, looking at the boy before them, who looked only 7 years old, they couldn't express such joy. After all, the sight of him pulling the helicopter with his bare hands, catching bullets with his bare hands, and flicking them with his fingers made it clear to them that the little brat before them was merely harmless on the outside, but a monster within. Jin and the others didn't believe in the existence of the undead. If such things existed, they, with their countless murderous tendencies, would have been dragged into the abyss by those they had killed. But while there might not be undead in the scientific world, there's no doubt aliens exist. Suzuki Seiya, who exactly are you? No matter how you look at it, you can't be a 7-year-old child, can you? Or are you no longer Suzuki Seiya, but something else? Jin, the most ruthless and frequently seen man in the Black Organization, was briefly stunned before quickly regaining his composure and questioning Seiya. Seeing Jin, who had quickly regained his composure and dared to question him, Seiya smiled in a seemingly harmless manner and said, "That's strange. Weren't you planning to capture me? Now you're asking who I am. Stop that bullshit. Our organization's target is Suzuki Seiya, and you're nothing like the intelligence reports. What the hell are you?" Seeing the harmless Seiya before her, Kirito felt her actions were humiliating. To save face, she shouted at Seiya with a timid expression. "As you can see, I am the Suzuki Seiya you're looking for. As for your doubts about my identity, I can probably understand. But I can only say that intelligence is often only a guide. Most people who are deeply secretive often only show you what they want you to see. You can't comprehend my powers, so you think I'm not Suzuki Seiya? I can only say that your vision is limited. Given humanity's current state, do you think we can see the limits of science? So-called superpowers are merely byproducts of the human brain's development to a certain level. Because of the unknown and the mysterious, you feel fear, even thinking I'm subhuman. Just like the drug APTX 4869 your organization is researching, who could have imagined that a drug that could rejuvenate people could exist? Seiya's long speech left Jin and the others silent, clearly overwhelmed by his nonsense. While the drug APTX 4869, the organization's research, wasn't exactly confidential, it wasn't accessible to the average member. The fact that Seiya could actually blurt out this idea at this moment clearly demonstrated that he possessed a certain understanding of their organization. Those who had assumed they knew Seiya intimately only now realized they knew nothing about the real Seiya. Since you know our organization, you should also be aware of its power and background. We previously underestimated your strength and attempted to use force to take you away, a mistake we made. The skills and abilities you possess are exactly what our organization needs. I wonder if you would be interested in collaborating with us. Jin felt he had no confidence in defeating Seiya, and since the organization had originally intended for him to join their ranks, he decided to negotiate as a last resort. Jin could see that Seiya's development of the virtual world technology known as the Second World indicated he possessed considerable ambition. Their connections and influence spanned the globe, and if Seiya wished to achieve his goals, collaborating with them would undoubtedly be a win-win situation. Cooperation? Given your organization's strength, are you qualified to discuss this with me? With our Suzuki Group and the Second World's money-making potential, it won't take long for us to reach world-class wealth. As for connections? With the Second World as a framework, we can easily reach the political and business elite. As for technical expertise, let's not discuss that. As for strength, if you can escape me alive today, then we can discuss it. Hearing Seiya's final words, Jin and the others understood that their opponent had gone to such great lengths to catch up with them, not to negotiate with them, but to eliminate them. Almost as soon as Seiya finished speaking, Jin quickly drew the pistol from his back and fired. But the result was obvious. Even with the extremely fast sniper rifle, Seiya could detect the trajectory with his naked eye, let alone a pistol bullet. Even if the pistol shot was hit, the damage would be minimal given Seiya's current physical condition. However, Seiya managed to dodge the attack and, with a swift sprint, instantly reached Jin. Seeing Seiya's tiny fist coming head-on with a thud, Jin didn't dare to be careless and quickly crossed his arms in front of him. Crack! A crisp, audible crack of bone rang out from Jin's arm. The blow was so severe that Jin's body flew backwards in the next second, his back even spinning through the middle partition and flying into the cockpit where Vodka was. "Brother, are you okay?" Seeing Jin's arms twisted at an unnatural angle, Vodka's face was filled with worry. Jin, feeling the fractured bones in his hand, couldn't help but look terrified. Fortunately, he hadn't let his guard down and used his arms to block the impact. If Seiya's punch had hit him squarely in the head, his skull would have exploded by now. Vodka, find a place to make an emergency landing immediately. That guy is a true monster. If we don't get to the ground, we won't even have a chance to escape. With just one strike, Jin clearly felt the absolute gap between them and Seiya. He had seen humans with impressive skills, such as Akai Shuchi and Kurosawa, but he was certain that no matter how much a human trained, they would never reach the inhuman level of Seiya. Chapter 354 Jin's Nightmare. Members of the organization were killed one after another. Jin certainly didn't believe in supernatural powers. Rather than supernatural forces, he preferred to believe that Seiya's extraordinary powers stemmed from technological means. For example, Seiya had previously mentioned that his abilities were acquired through brain development. After all, the human brain remains the most mysterious region of the universe. Alternatively, besides brain development, there could also be genetic or physical modifications, which could also be explained by science. After all, Seiya was a prodigy, and it was entirely possible that he had utilized advanced science and technology to enhance or transform himself in unknown ways. As Jin was sent flying by Seiya's punch, Koen and Chianti reacted instantly. Chianti gritted his teeth and attempted a sweeping kick to trip Seiya, but Seiya easily dodged it and then unleashed a whip kick to the abdomen, sending him spewing blood and flying backwards. Meanwhile, Koen, who had remained silent, had already donned his parachute while Jin and Chianti were fighting, and was about to jump out of the helicopter to escape. Frightened by the events that had unfolded, Koen concluded that remaining there meant certain death, so he decisively chose the best way to save his life. Little did he know, his seemingly clever move would make him the first member of the organization to fall at the hands of Seiya. Leaving the helicopter, Koen immediately deployed his parachute. With it shielding him from view, Cohen was confident that even with a gun in hand, a sniper attack would be difficult. Whether Seiya could fly was a completely unimaginable concept, as it was simply not humanly possible. However, Cohen, who thought he had escaped, likely never imagined, until his death, that, aside from Seiya's ability to fly, a human could actually fire a fireball from his hand. A small fireball erupted from Seiya's palm, instantly burning through Cohen's parachute and striking him directly in the back. Enduring excruciating abdominal pain, Chianti had just stood up when she saw Cohen disintegrate into ash in midair and plummet to the ground. Her body instantly shuddered with fear. Their partner had been left behind, and Chianti's first impulse wasn't anger or resentment, but sheer terror. Seiya's previous feats, while inhumanly powerful, could at least be explained through science, but what the hell was this maneuver of creating and shooting fireballs out of thin air? Could a human truly be capable of such feats? You damned monster! As a Black Organization assassin, Chianti, after a brief moment of fear, watched Seiya slowly approach her and quickly drew her pistol and fired at him. Facing such a monster, she would naturally have wanted to flee if she could, but the situation was clear. They were in a helicopter, with nowhere to go. Jumping out with a parachute, as Cohen had done, would have been even more tragic and swifter, so despite her fear, Chianti could only rely on her pistol for a final stand. Originally, I didn't want anything to do with your organization. After all, I'm not a savior. Whether you seek the secret of immortality or world domination is irrelevant to me. But now that you've set your sights on me, sitting back and waiting for death isn't my style. I originally planned to eradicate your entire organization to prevent future trouble, but it seems your boss is even more hidden than I imagined. In that case, I must at least give him, her, a warning. Let him, her, know that I'm not to be trifled with, and prevent my family from suffering unnecessary harm in the future. Seiya spoke as he slowly approached Chianti. The bullet from her pistol, before striking Seiya's body, seemed to collide with an invisible shield and ricochet in all directions. Don't kill me, just like Curacao. I can help you. I'm very skilled at killing. With Seiya's throat grasped by her hand, Chianti, sensing her imminent death, lost her usual frenzy and pleaded for mercy with a look of terror on her face. Chianti knew the consequences of betraying the organization, but she had no choice. If she didn't, she would die at their hands. Seiya's strength also made Chianti feel that if she truly served under him, even the organization wouldn't be able to do anything to her. Jin was the core member who often cleansed out traitors in the organization, but in front of Seiya, he was as powerless as a small fry. Looking at Chianti, who was begging for mercy with her mouth drooling, Seiya said with a hint of disgust, "So, do you know who the boss of your organization is?" Hearing Seiya's question, Chianti slowly shook her head. Although she was indeed an assassin in the organization, she knew nothing about the boss's true identity. If that's the case, what's the point of keeping you alive? In terms of strength and skill, you're far inferior to Curacao. And as an assassin in the organization, you've killed countless people, haven't you? So you should just go to hell and repent. Chianti, terrified, tried to say something, but Seiya didn't bother to waste time, simply snapping her neck. There was no such thing as sympathy. Unlike Shirley and Curacao, this crazy woman, Chianti, was a wicked creature. Keeping her alive would be a waste of time. Turning her over to the FBI or the NSA wasn't something Seiya considered. For one thing, he couldn't explain how he'd captured Chianti. For another, Chianti already knew too much, and it would be bad if he told them too much. Furthermore, given the Black Organization's execution, if Chianti were taken away by the FBI or the NSA, they would either rescue her or silence her. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Seiya decided to eliminate the enemy right here, which was the easiest option. Just as Seiya was dispatching Cohen and Chianti, Vodka finally made an emergency landing by helicopter near one of the artificial lakes at the Taodao Aquarium. Upon seeing Chianti's broken neck beside Seiya, Vodka's usually expressionless face shifted to a hint of surprise. "Let's go. We're no match for that guy." Vodka, gun in hand, was about to advance, but upon hearing Jin's words, he paused for a moment before quickly opening fire to cover his and Jin's retreat. Seiya had intended to eliminate both Jin and Vodka here, but his keen senses quickly spotted two figures, one large and one small, hiding in the bushes beside the lake. Chapter 355 Jin who sees everyone as a traitor. Hiding in the bushes nearby were two figures, one large and one small. They could only be Conan and Toru Amuro. Seiya noticed them, but they hadn't seen Seiya in the helicopter. They had previously dove into the lake to avoid strafing from an attack helicopter, but upon emerging, they saw a black organization helicopter making an emergency landing nearby. Jin's distressed appearance surprised Conan and Toru Amuro. After all, one had dealt with Jin numerous times, while the other had been undercover in the black organization for a long time, so they knew what a thorny figure he was. Yet, such a ruthless figure, his arms drooping, and a slightly panicked expression, followed Vodka, as if he were running for his life. Seeing this, Toru Amuro, who was with Conan, was torn between two internal struggles. Jin was undoubtedly a key member of the organization, and he appeared to be seriously injured. Capturing him alive would likely yield considerable intelligence about the organization. If it were Jin under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have had much of a chance, but now that Jin was seriously injured, it was undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. However, this opportunity wasn't without a price. Only Jin was injured, while Vodka was fine. Even if he tried to save Jin, it wouldn't be difficult for Vodka to escape. He had finally infiltrated the organization, and if he tried to save Jin, his cover would undoubtedly be exposed. If Jin knew the organization's boss and could use him to gain crucial intelligence, that would be fine. But if Jin didn't know much, or if he couldn't capture him alive, then his efforts would be in vain. Amuro, Toru and Conan were hesitant about whether to take action, while Seiya, still in the helicopter, wore a grimace. It was unclear whether it was fate or Jin's incredible luck. Wherever he made a forced landing, he'd encounter the Shinigami student and Amuro Toru. If Seiya had decisively eliminated Jin and the others, his previous image would undoubtedly have been shattered. Furthermore, Amuro Toru was a member of the Security Bureau. If they knew how powerful he was, it would be a huge problem for him and his family. Of course, there was another solution. That was to kill not only Jin and Vodka, but also Conan and Amuro Toru. That way, there would be no witnesses. However, it was clear that Seiya wasn't that ruthless, so he could only watch as Conan and Amuro Toru caught up with Jin and the others before disappearing into the darkness. Jin, whose escape was being protected by Vodka, was now quite confused. He didn't understand why Seiya hadn't caught up with him. Was he afraid? Was he playing cat and mouse? Or did he simply not take them seriously from the beginning? Of course, regardless of the possibility, Jin's only hope was to evacuate as quickly as possible. Bang! Who's hiding there? Get out now! Vodka, trembling as he was covering Jin's retreat, suddenly sensed movement from the corner. Without hesitation, he fired a shot and shouted into the shadows. Conan, in the shadows, looked at Amuro Toru beside him, a look of apology on his face. It was just him accidentally bumping against a stone, making the noise. A normal person probably wouldn't have noticed, but Vodka, this large man, was surprisingly alert. Don't shoot. It's me. I'm here to support you. Having already been discovered, the plan to capture Jin alive by surprise was naturally shelved. To prevent Conan from being exposed and killed by Vodka, Amuro Toru raised his hands and stepped out of the corner. Bourbon, it's you. Why are you here? You shouldn't have been informed of the organization's plan this time. If you don't have a reasonable explanation, I'll have Vodka finish you off. Jin watched Amuro Toru emerge from the corner with his hands raised. Although he didn't immediately order Vodka to attack, a look of suspicion crossed his face. While I don't know what the organization's plan is, my presence here isn't surprising, is it? I saw the news about the Taodao Aquarium at the cafe where I work, so I came here to investigate. It wasn't until I saw the helicopter overhead that I realized the organization was involved. Besides, if I truly had ill intentions towards you, I would have had plenty of opportunities to strike. Why would I wait until now for you to discover me? Amuro Toru's reasoning finally convinced Jin. After all, with this incident being so serious, it was only natural for Bourbon to come here to gather intelligence. And as he had said, he wasn't in good shape right now. If Bourbon wanted to take them down, he wouldn't have waited until now. Seeing Jin's silence, Toru Amuro understood that he had temporarily accepted his explanation. He then spoke, "What on earth happened to you, and why are you in such a mess?" Although his suspicions about Bourbon had been temporarily lifted, Jin still didn't fully trust him. So, he spoke, "You should understand the rules of the organization. Don't ask too many questions. Chianti and Cohen have been killed. We must leave this place immediately. Vodka, try to contact Vermouth. That woman is very important to the boss. We can't let her die here." Hearing Jin's words, Toru Amuro was visibly stunned. He had never expected Koen and Chianti to die here. Who could have killed both Chianti and Koen and caused Jin to flee in such a mess? Was it Chuchiakai? No, Toru Amuro had fought him before, and while he could undeniably be a formidable figure, he didn't believe he possessed such skill. After confirming that Seiya hadn't caught up with them, Jin had vodka call Vermouth. Jin originally believed that Vermouth was the first to contact Seiya and Curacao, and given her style of behavior, she was likely already trapped. However, to their surprise, Vermouth eventually answered Vodka's call, and after some probing by Jin, he confirmed that the other party was indeed Vodka. Vermouth, how did you survive? Did you betray the organization? Vermouth, on the other end of the line, was undoubtedly bewildered when she heard what Jin said. What did her survival have to do with betraying the organization? Curacao was powerful, but not so powerful that surviving him was equivalent to betrayal, right? Chapter 356 Vermouth, is Curacao that powerful? Jin, what do you mean by that? My survival means I've betrayed the organization? And your continued survival doesn't also mean you've betrayed the organization? I haven't yet asked what exactly happened on your end. Did the plan succeed? I had a minor incident, but with the strength you've shown, taking Curacao shouldn't be a big problem, right? Although Vermouth was knocked down by Seiya, Seiya's subsequent actions were clearly unknown to the unconscious Vermouth. In her opinion, while Seiya's abilities were beyond her expectations, Curacao was clearly the more formidable target. From Vermouth's fragmentary words, Jin understood that Vermouth hadn't witnessed the strength of that monstrous imp. Given that, Jin wasn't surprised Vermouth survived. Tell me first, what exactly happened on your end? Hearing Jin's tone, Vermouth understood that their side had likely been defeated, so she stopped arguing. After I was knocked unconscious, Curacao tied me up and left. I took advantage of her absence to break free and escape. So, your plan failed because of Curacao. After Seiya jumped onto the helicopter, Curacao, deeply concerned about Seiya, followed closely behind. As for Vermouth, she was no child, and Curacao couldn't bring herself to get her down from the Ferris wheel's 100-meter-high gondola, so he could only tie her up and leave her alone. There was an accident. Chianti and Koen were killed. Now we need to get out of here immediately, avoiding the police blockade, or we'll be in big trouble. Just like Amuro Toru before her, Vermouth was stunned by the news of Chianti and Koen's deaths. Vermouth knew Curacao was one of the best in the organization, but how could Jin, Vodka, and their assassin, Chianti and Koen, be defeated by Curacao alone? Even though she was filled with doubt, Vermouth knew Jin was no joke, so she temporarily put aside her doubts and said, I can easily get away with my disguise, but don't you have a helicopter? Did Curacao destroy that too? Judging by the detectives currently cordoning off the aquarium, they could have used the helicopter before the armed forces arrived. And while the helicopter had sustained some internal damage, it could still take off without any problems. The problem was, Jin had no idea whether Seiya had left the helicopter. If he hadn't, wouldn't their attack be a complete loss? Bourbon, go to the artificial lake here and bring over the helicopter we forced to land here. Vodka and I will meet up with Vermouth. We'll try to create a commotion and chaos here to attract the detectives' attention. The organization was already suspicious of Bourbon, and now, coincidentally, he'd appeared here. Jin wouldn't risk retrieving the helicopter himself, so Bourbon, already under considerable suspicion, was a good candidate. If Bourbon could successfully bring the helicopter over, it would prove he was trustworthy for now. But if he were unlucky enough to run into Seiya there, it wouldn't be a loss. They'd have eliminated a potential threat in the organization. Amuro Toru was no fool. Jin and Vodka had forced the helicopter down before, which meant they had a reason to do so. Now, asking him to retrieve the helicopter was undoubtedly a test. If he refused, Jin and Vodka would likely kill him immediately. If he chose to flee, his undercover identity would be exposed, and he would face the organization's continued pursuit. I can go get the helicopter. But you must also promise me that you'll give me a reasonable explanation after this. Amuro Toru was left with a choice, either be suspected and killed, or temporarily cooperate with Jin and his men. After a moment's hesitation, Amuro Toru ultimately chose the latter. After watching Amuro Toru leave, Jin had Vodka hold the phone to his ear and addressed Vermouth, who was standing on the other side. Vermouth, have you prepared the bomb I asked you to plant in the Ferris wheel? In 10 minutes, whether Bourbon arrives with a helicopter or not, you are to detonate it. The bomb Jin had instructed Vermouth to plant was a new type of explosive obtained by the organization, and its power was astonishing. Once the bomb, mounted on the main shaft, detonated, the 100-meter-tall, twin-wheeled Ferris wheel would break free from its support, crushing the entire aquarium like a rolling hoop. With such a commotion, the detectives on guard would undoubtedly be distracted to avoid massive casualties, and that would be the perfect time for him to evacuate. Elsewhere, back at the artificial lake, Toru Amuro and Conan exchanged a glance before cautiously infiltrating the helicopter that the Black Organization had previously forced to land. However, they soon discovered that, aside from Chianti's body, there were no other dangerous individuals in the cabin. Based on the scattered bullet casings and evidence of a struggle, Toru Amuro and Conan could almost conclude that Jin and his companions had engaged in a fierce struggle in the helicopter. Her neck was completely broken. Anyone who could do that must have incredible strength. But I've fought Kurosawa before, and while she's quite skilled, her strength shouldn't be this high. The killer was extremely cautious. Fingerprints and other traces were wiped off her body, and her cell phone and other personal belongings were all taken. Conan, standing nearby, spoke up after searching the scene without success. Things are getting increasingly complicated. I didn't expect there's a third party involved besides Kurosawa. Initially, Amuro Toru had suspected Akai Shuchi, but observing Chianti's death and the scene completely dispelled his suspicions. Chianti was the organization's most deranged killer, yet she died with a look of terror on her face, clearly having endured a situation that would have even frightened and despaired her. Besides her broken neck, Chianti also suffered several broken ribs, but no other external injuries. While there were numerous bullet casings at the scene, there wasn't a trace of blood. This showed that the gap in strength between her and Chianti was enormous. So great, it even made her feel fear and despair. Amuro Toru and Akai Shuchi were old rivals, and he knew very well that her opponent wasn't that powerful. Furthermore, Chianti showed no fear towards Akai Shuchi, even threatening to kill him several times. Chapter 357, The Ferris Wheel Explodes, a disaster that cannot be stopped by human power. There's nothing wrong with the helicopter's performance, but are you really planning on evacuating Jin and the others? Conan, watching the thoughtful Amuro Toru, asked. He felt Jin and the others were trapped. If Amuro Toru didn't use the helicopter to pick them up, once the armed forces arrived to seal off the scene, Jin and the others would be unable to escape at daybreak. You still don't understand the organization's methods well enough, nor do you fully appreciate how terrifying Jin is. Even if I don't help them evacuate, they'll surely have other options. If that's the case, then it's better for me to cooperate with them. That way, at least I can earn their trust. Ultimately, Amuro Toru left Conan behind and drove the Black Organization's helicopter to the agreed rendezvous point. Seeing Bourbon successfully return with the helicopter, Jin smiled faintly. Then, looking at Morb, he said, "Let's do it. It'll be hard for us to escape once the armed forces arrive." Hearing Jin's words, Vermouth also pulled out the remote control and, after a moment's hesitation, finally pressed the button. Boom! The moment Vermouth pressed the detonator, a violent explosion erupted from the axis of the twin Ferris wheels in the center of the Taodao aquarium. The iron frames supporting the twin wheels creaked under the weight as the two massive wheels finally broke free from the blast. Seeing this, both Amuro Toru, who was currently piloting the helicopter, and Conan, still inside the aquarium, were filled with fury. As everyone knows, Ferris wheels are round. When the giant twin wheels broke free from their supports and fell to the ground, the kinetic energy generated by the explosion would cause them to roll rapidly. The aquarium had already been evacuated due to the kidnapping of the Suzuki Group's heir apparent. However, if the Ferris wheel rolled out of the aquarium and into the surrounding streets, there would undoubtedly be massive casualties. How could they stop it? This was a 100-meter tall Ferris wheel. Given its weight and speed, how could human power stop it? As it turned out, when the Ferris wheel exploded, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, stationed outside the aquarium, could do nothing more than evacuate the area as much as possible. Even with their vast presence, the assembled police were powerless to stop the massive Ferris wheel. Just as the detectives were at a loss, Conan suddenly emerged from the sidelines and addressed the Tokyo police captains. "Inspector Megior, quickly get everyone to move their cars into the Ferris wheel's path." Watching Conan flee from the aquarium, Inspector Megior was about to question the kid about his place in their cordoned-off area, but a nearby inspector, leaning on a cane and sporting an X-shaped scar across his left eye and a fierce expression, immediately understood Conan's intention. Inspector Major, there's no time to worry about why this child is in the police cordoned-off area. Line up all the Metropolitan Police Department cars in the Ferris wheel's path, acting as stumbling blocks. This will minimize the Ferris wheel's kinetic energy and prevent it from rolling out of the cordoned-off area, causing further casualties. Yamato Gansuk's explanation convinced the other inspectors in the surrounding areas of the situation, and they quickly mobilized. We've done everything we can. Now we can only leave it to fate. A large number of police cars were parked in two halves on the street outside the Taodao Aquarium. Facing the relentlessly rolling giant Ferris wheel, there was only so much they could do. After all, even with their numbers, they couldn't rush to the wheel and stop it with manpower, right? Using weapons could easily destroy the wheel, but that would require heavy weaponry. Even with a large number of standard pistols the Metropolitan Police Department possessed, destroying the Ferris wheel was a pipe dream. Conan followed behind the police officers, watching the giant Ferris wheel roll in from the darkness, destroying everything in its path with ease, leaving behind a shower of electrical sparks. Jin and his companions had already left in their helicopters, but no one cared about them now. If the double-wheeled Ferris wheel rolled into the city, it would be a catastrophic disaster. At the Taodao Aquarium, Kurosawa finally reunited with Seiya. Seeing Seiya safe and sound, Kurosawa breathed a sigh of relief. Just as she was relieved, a sudden explosion startled both her and Seiya. Soon after, the two, still inside the aquarium, watched as a massive double-wheeled Ferris wheel detached from the blast and rapidly rolled toward the city. This disaster was undoubtedly the work of the Black Organization, and Kurosawa, reflecting on the fact that she was responsible for this whole situation, felt a wave of remorse. Pulling out the multicolored keychain from her pocket and glancing at it, Kurosawa couldn't help but picture the smiling faces of Seiya, the Titan 3, and the other children. A resolute expression quickly returned to her face. Kurosawa might have been pure black before, but since losing her memory and meeting Seiya and the others, she'd grown fonder of her colorful self. Earlier, while searching for Seiya, she remembered a large crane nearby. If that crane were there, it would surely be able to stop the giant Ferris wheel from rolling. Of course, if she used the crane to stop the Ferris wheel, the collapse would surely bury her in the rubble. But now, Kurosawa had come to her senses, and she no longer wished to dwell on her lost memories. Since those children saw Kurosawa as a gentle yet strong older sister, she decided to let that person live on in their memories forever. Having made her decision, Kurosawa didn't greet Seiya, but simply ran off in a certain direction without a word. She knew that if Seiya knew her intentions, he would surely stop her. Fearing that Seiya might catch up, Kurosawa kept turning back to check if he was following her. However, when Kurosawa looked back at Seiya, his gesture frightened her to her core. Seiya didn't stop him or follow him. Instead, after taking a look at the rolling Ferris wheel, he rushed towards the rolling double-wheeled Ferris wheel at an extremely fast speed. Seiya, what are you going to do? It's very dangerous over there. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358, Seiya shows his true supernatural power. What? Of course, I'll do what you're thinking. You probably thought, this is all your fault, and you want to turn this disaster through self-sacrifice, didn't you? So, didn't I tell you before? Don't treat me like a child. And in a way, it's me, not you, who caused this major disaster, right? Watching Seiya sprint towards the Ferris wheel, Kurosawa didn't have time to think twice before following him. She had intended to catch up with Seiya and forcibly carry him away, but she soon realized she couldn't keep up with the child. Something was happening to Seiya that Kurosawa couldn't comprehend. His rapid movement was like a swirling wind, causing his petite form to soar at low altitude in the darkness like a ghost. A human being could fly unaided? She had never seen it before. When she finally caught up with Seiya, she saw his tiny figure standing before the oncoming twin-wheeled Ferris wheel, calmly forming hand seals. It was as if he wasn't facing a massive Ferris wheel capable of collapsing buildings, but a mere windmill. Seeing Seiya's composure, Kurosawa couldn't help but feel a surge of faith in him. A 7-year-old child could avert this seemingly unforeseen disaster. If she told anyone now, no one would believe it. But for some reason, After witnessing Seiya's command of the wind, Kurosawa felt that Seiya could do the same. Shikigami Summon, Eastern Azure Dragon, Kanji Jiao, Roar. Kurosawa didn't know if she was seeing things, or if there truly were powers beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. But in any case, she was witnessing a scene that defied common sense. Seiya, standing before the twin-wheeled Ferris wheel, formed a series of hand seals before casually casting a spell that spontaneously combusted in mid-air. A faint dragon's roar echoed through the air. In the next second, a powerful, visible vortex of wind swirled around Seiya. Under the bright moonlight, Kurosawa could even faintly discern the shadow of a horned, dragon-like creature, hovering over Seiya and roaring. As the dragon reared its head and roared, a powerful storm suddenly erupted from the previously windless air. The force of the storm was so intense that it not only brought the massive Ferris wheel to a halt, but also, with overwhelming force, shattered it into thousands of pieces of scrap metal that fell to the ground. After doing all this, Seiya slowly lowered his hand as if nothing had happened. The previously violent wind pressure around him gradually subsided, eventually dissipating completely. Is it true that, due to the rules of the world, the star Shikigami cannot fully manifest in this world? But this level of power should be enough for me to sweep across this world. To say that a Ferris wheel collapses and requires a dead body to stop it is truly disrespectful of me. Kurosawa stood there, stunned, staring at the Ferris wheel, which had been shredded into a pile of rubble by the powerful storm currents. However, such emotions were natural. After all, what had just happened before her was so unnatural, it could even be said to have completely shaken her perspective. Seiya, who are you? Kurosawa, who had been in a state of confusion as Seiya approached her, finally realized what was happening and asked Seiya with a look of surprise. So, didn't I tell you before? This world often contains powers beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. And I'm not just an ordinary child as I appear. But you, Sister Kurosawa, are the first to witness my power. If possible, I hope you can keep it a secret. After all, as you know, being too different from the norm isn't always a good thing. I really like my current identity, so I don't want to be bothered by others. It's easy to avoid an open attack, but it's hard to guard against a hidden one. Kurosawa fully understood Seiya's intentions. This world is full of ambitious people, both black and white. Once anyone knew Seiya possessed such supernatural powers, there would undoubtedly be those who would take advantage of it. Seiya might not be afraid, but he had friends and family, so keeping a low profile was naturally better. Kurosawa, however, hadn't expected Seiya to be so willing to reveal his greatest secret to her after only knowing her for a day. This unconditional trust deeply touched Kurosawa. Actually, there are more peaceful and ordinary ways to prevent disasters besides the power I just used. But I use this power to show you, Sister Kurosawa, that even an abnormal being like me can live the way I want. You can choose your own way of life. As for the trouble with the black organization, you don't have to worry. With my strength, I can handle you. After hearing Seiya's words, Kurosawa was deeply moved. So moved that she almost forgot Seiya was a superhuman. She embraced him and thanked him with tears in her eyes. In the past, Kurosawa worked as an intelligence operative for the organization, operating in the shadows, collecting and stealing intelligence for the organization. That life was as black and colorless as a black hue. But during her amnesia, she experienced a different life and came to love it. As Seiya said, she had no choice before, but now she wanted to live her life according to her own wishes. Kurosawa no longer cared whether she would be hunted down for leaving the organization. The organization had already planned to kill her. Besides, Seiya had said he could help her solve the problem, so there was definitely no problem. Just as Seiya trusted her, she now trusted him immensely. The detectives outside the Taodao Aquarium had been bracing for disaster, preparing for it while evacuating the crowd in an orderly manner. However, what they finally saw, with their faces filled with anxiety, was not a giant Ferris wheel rolling in, but two figures, one tall and one short, slowly emerging from the darkness. Chapter 359, Hiring Kurosawa as a personal bodyguard. Hold. Hands up. Don't move. As Seiya and Kurosawa emerged from the Taodao Aquarium, the detectives standing guard outside raised their pistols and shouted at the two men, as if facing a formidable enemy. Under the bright lights, the detectives quickly realized that the shorter figure, one tall and one short, was the abducted eldest son of the Suzuki Group. The Metropolitan Police Department officers, not recognizing Kurosawa beside Seiya, were extremely wary of him. However, the more senior Security Bureau agents, including Kazumi, rushed forward upon seeing Kurosawa and attempted to abduct him. Wait a minute, what are you planning to do? This woman saved my life. If it weren't for her, I'd probably be dead. I don't know which department you're from, but let's wait for our lawyers from the Suzuki group to arrive before we discuss anything. Seiya knew that Kazumi and the others, like Amuro Toru, were from the Security Bureau, but he wouldn't let them take him away like that. Regardless of whether Kurosawa had previously aided the organization in killing people, or whether he now considered abandoning his position, the fact remained that he was once a member of the Black Organization. Furthermore, as an intelligence agent within the organization, Kurosawa knew far more than the average member, so it was natural for Kazumi to want to take him away. Master Suzuki, if I remember correctly, this woman was the one who abducted you earlier this morning? How come she's now your savior? Although you come from a wealthy family, you can't lie to her to exonerate her. This woman and the organization she belongs to are equally dangerous, so we must take her away. Seeing Seiya standing in his way, Kazumi's face darkened. According to Furuyuri Amuro Toru, they already knew Kurosawa was an intelligence agent within the organization. Kurosawa's importance in gaining more information about the organization was self-evident, so he naturally wouldn't compromise easily. The fact that Miss Kurosawa was kidnapped before was purely a play acting on my part. She knew a dangerous organization was targeting me. And, not long ago, Miss Kurosawa was officially appointed my personal bodyguard. As her boss, I certainly wouldn't let you just tell me to take away our Suzuki group members. Kazumi largely believed what Seiya said. After all, if Kurosawa had any ill intentions towards Seiya, she would have kidnapped him and fled with Jin and the others just now. And since Kurosawa didn't leave with a Black Organization and even protected Seiya, either she had fallen out with them, or, as Seiya claimed, she had been trying to help Seiya from the beginning. Of course, whether Kurosawa had betrayed the Black Organization or not was of little concern to Kazumi. He was more concerned with the information Kurosawa had on them. Seiya, despite his distinguished status, was still only a child. Just as Kazumi was about to use his adult status to scold Seiya for his childish mischief, a stretched Rolls-Royce suddenly drove up. Upon hearing that Seiya was safe, the Suzuki family immediately dropped everything they were doing and rushed over. The moment the car door opened, Tomoko Suzuki, always mature and steady, locked eyes with Seiya amidst the crowd. She rushed to him and hugged him tightly. Seiya, my child, I'm so glad you're safe. You have no idea. When I heard you were kidnapped, I felt like the sky had fallen, seeing Tomoko's passionate embrace. Seiya didn't try to break free, as he usually would, out of embarrassment. Instead, he let her hold him and cry. Seiya could sense that this incident had truly shaken his mother. Although it had been less than half a day since he'd been abducted, Seiya could already see a trace of haggardness and exhaustion on his usually graceful mother's face. It was clear that Suzuki Tomoko had been genuinely worried about him during his hostage period. After holding her precious son for several minutes, she finally felt relieved. Then, in full view of everyone, she lifted Seiya's shirt to see if he was injured. After confirming his upper body was unharmed, she even started to pull down his pants. While this might seem harmless to a 7-year-old, with so many outsiders present, Seiya, the talented boy, had to save face, didn't he? Didn't he see the numerous television media outlets already gathered around, snapping photos of them? If this humiliation was broadcast on television, how would Seiya survive? Mom, I'm really fine. The only reason I'm safe this time is thanks to this Kurosawa sister. Kurosawa has saved me so many times before, risking her own life, so to show my gratitude, I wanted to hire her as my personal bodyguard. But just now, these uncles insisted that Kurosawa's sister was a bad person and wanted to take her away for questioning. Hearing her beloved son's words, Suzuki Tomoko finally noticed a tall, silver-haired Kurosawa standing beside Seiya. She didn't know who Kurosawa was, but since she had saved her most precious son, she must be a great benefactor to the Suzuki group. According to her previous promise, even if she asked for half of the assets of the Suzuki group and Seiya's company, Suzuki Tomoko would give it without hesitation, especially since she only wanted to be Seiya's personal bodyguard. Thank you so much for saving my child. As promised, I'll have the asset transfer agreement prepared immediately. Now that you have half of the Suzuki group and Seiya's assets, no one will be able to easily embarrass you unless there's clear evidence of criminal activity. Given the current social influence of the Suzuki Group and the Second World, if Kurosawa truly possessed half of those assets, even special agencies wouldn't be able to do much about him without irrefutable evidence. However, Kurosawa, flattered by Suzuki Tomoko's words, said, "Madam, you're being too kind. While it's true that I helped Seiya, it's true that I was the one saved by Seiya. As for the compensation you mentioned, I simply cannot accept it. If possible, I'd like you to let me serve as Seiya's bodyguard, always protecting him." Upon hearing Kurosawa's response, Suzuki Tomoko, already deeply grateful, felt even more pleased. After all, not everyone has the fortitude to refuse such a fortune. Chapter 360, Gaining a Beautiful Personal Secretary. So-called personal bodyguards are nothing new among wealthy families, and those who can achieve this level of personal protection are undoubtedly the most trusted individuals in the family. Suzuki Tomoko hadn't seen Kurosawa's skills, so she couldn't comment on them for now. However, the fact that he calmly refused half of the Suzuki Group's assets showed that he was a man of character and personality that she highly regarded. After this incident, Suzuki Tomoko realized that she had been too careless before. Ayako and Sanako were fine, but Seiya, with his many accolades as the heir to the Suzuki Group and the developer of the Second World, was a natural target. This incident also served as a wake-up call for Suzuki Tomoko. Such incidents wouldn't just happen once, so Seiya's bodyguard team had to be arranged as soon as possible. Kurosawa was her son's savior, and he remained unshaken by the temptation of money. He was a trustworthy person, perfectly qualified to serve as Seiya's bodyguard captain. Upon realizing this, Suzuki Tomoko immediately became concerned about Kurosawa's situation. She immediately called the Suzuki Group's legal team and approached Kazumi. Seeing Suzuki Tomoko approaching, Kazumi knew he was in trouble and regretted not taking action sooner. After all, the Suzuki Group's mistress was far less forgivable than the prodigy Seiya. Although Kurosawa was part of the organization, it was a secretive organization. Kurosawa was only involved in intelligence operations, not murder. Releasing him from the Suzuki Group based on weak, one-sided claims would be a difficult task. Events proved Kazumi's suspicions correct. Despite the Suzuki Group's powerful legal team, Kazumi's superiors were already defeated before he even conceded. The Black Organization was a criminal organization, but some of its members were not willing to join voluntarily. To achieve its goals, the organization often used coercion, inducements, and other methods to recruit talented individuals from the scientific and financial communities around the world. Just like Jin and his teams planned to kidnap Seiya and force him into the organization's service. Others, like Shirley, have been members since birth, born into the organization because their parents were members. Can you say that those who were abducted, or those born into it without their own will, are all bad people? Kurosawa, having temporarily lost her memory, has no recollection of how she joined the organization, but as an intelligence officer, she has never caused a loss of life. Furthermore, in this incident, she not only saved the eldest son of the Suzuki Group but also prevented the Ferris wheel from rolling into the city, saving countless innocent lives. Consequently, under pressure from the Suzuki Group and with neither the NSA nor the FBI having any evidence of Kurosawa's crimes, the NSA was ultimately forced to compromise. There was no other solution. Not only was there a lack of evidence, but the Suzuki Group's global influence was also immense. Because of her rescue of Seiya, Kurosawa is now considered the Suzuki Group's greatest benefactor. Suzuki Tomoko is determined to protect Kurosawa, and even if her superiors, not to mention team leader Kazumi, were to intervene, it would be of no use. Of course, the Security Bureau's compromise comes with conditions. Despite her temporary amnesia, Kurosawa must immediately report any information related to the Black Organization. Furthermore, the Suzuki Group has guaranteed her and even become her employer. Therefore, if Kurosawa commits any crime during this period, Seiya and the Suzuki Group will be jointly liable. Although Kurosawa's sensitive status compared to ordinary residents imposes numerous restrictions on her from traveling abroad and requiring regular scrutiny, she is nonetheless delighted with the outcome. She never imagined that as a member of the organization, she would one day be able to live a normal life under the sun. Kurosawa herself is well aware that her choices and current treatment are entirely due to Seiya's help. Previously, Seiya's claim that Kurosawa was his personal bodyguard was merely an excuse to help her get away with things. However, after the aquarium incident, Kurosawa actually donned a professional outfit and became Seiya's personal bodyguard and secretary. Although Kurosawa knew that Seiya's abilities didn't require a personal bodyguard, she still accepted the Suzuki Group's offer and now stays with Seiya all day, hoping to repay his kindness. Here, this is the milk I just warmed up. It should be just the right temperature. Kurosawa, wearing a white shirt and a black dress with a multicolored pendant at the open collar, walked into Seiya's office with a glass of milk. Seiya looked at her and said, "You don't have to be so hard on yourself. You said you were my bodyguard, but that was just an excuse you made in a desperate situation. With your skills and abilities, you'll have a better life even after leaving the black organization." After hearing Seiya's words, Kurosawa placed a cup in front of Seiya and looked at him with her unique, heterochromatic eyes. "Didn't you say that before? I can make choices based on my own preferences. What I'm doing now is a choice I've made after careful consideration. And I don't feel wronged about my current life at all. On the contrary, I really like it. You want to get rid of me so much? Could it be that I'm not doing my job as your bodyguard and secretary?" Kurosawa smiled sweetly and looked at Seiya as he spoke his truest thoughts. She was already alone and helpless. Even if she left the organization, she would just be living a muddled life in another place. Accepting the Suzuki Group's recruitment and staying with Seiya, not only can she see him and Ayumi's children every day, but she can also repay her kindness and atone for her sins. This is indeed a very happy thing for Kurosawa. It's okay for me. After what happened this time, my mother was going to arrange a security team around me. Instead of looking for some strangers, I trust you more. But Secretary Kurosawa, could you get me a cup of coffee next time? I haven't heard that milk can be a booster." After hearing what Seiya said, Kurosawa also smiled and said, "No, coffee is a drink for adults. Children drink milk. And Mrs. Suzuki specifically told you not to add too much sugar." Chapter 361. The second person in charge of the black organization has been found. Seeing the sugar jar beside him being taken away by Kurosawa, Seiya couldn't help but reveal a pleading look on his face and said, "I'll just add 3 more candies. You know, people who engage in mental work need sweetness in their brains the most." Glancing at Seiya's pitiful look as he held the silver spoon in his mouth, Kurosawa, who had originally had a stern look, finally softened his heart and said, "Then you can only add 1 more candy at most. If children eat too much sugar, their teeth will be damaged. Always pay attention to your diet and health. This is also what a personal secretary and bodyguard should do. Since Mrs. Suzuki and the 2 young ladies have entrusted me with such an important task, I have an obligation to take good care of you." After gulping down the almost unsweetened milk in his hand, Seiya sighed slowly, then looked at Kurosawa beside him with a serious face and said, "We're almost done with things at the company. Now it's time to go see that person, right?" Kurosawa, who had initially found Seiya's deflated expression amusing, now grew solemn at his words. "Seiya, you've already done enough for me. I truly don't want you to take any more risks. While you wield power beyond the comprehension of ordinary people, the influence of the organization is immense. Even the slightest misstep could—" "Sister Kurosawa, I think you misunderstood. I want to see that person not just for your sake, but for my own. After all, no one likes to be constantly haunted." Jin's return from the aquarium incident may have served as a warning to the organization. But a warning alone isn't enough. We need to deliver a hard blow to them so they know we're not to be trifled with. Otherwise, the future will be filled with endless resentment. After hearing Seiya's words, Kurosawa's face was filled with resignation. If she had known Seiya would be so reckless, she shouldn't have told him all that a few days ago. Indeed, a day after the aquarium incident, Kurosawa, aided by the 5 colored lights, finally regained all his memories, including memories of Rum, the second in command of the black organization. As Rum's former confidant, Kurosawa had naturally seen Rum before, though the image he had seen was a disguise. After sketching Rum's face, Seiya had Noah's Ark perform a big data scan in comparison. Finally, after 2 days of work, Noah's Ark, by hacking into various surveillance networks, located Rum's hideout. Rum was a large, dark-skinned man, seemingly in his 40s or 50s, with 2 large front teeth. He currently worked part-time at a sushi restaurant called Iroha in Bikacho, under the alias Wakita Kensuke. Late in the evening, driven by a dedicated driver, Seiya and Kurosawa entered the sushi restaurant, one after the other. Seeing the limited edition luxury car suddenly pull up outside, The attractive proprietress of Iroha Sushi rushed out to investigate, a look of surprise on her face. "Sir, if you'd like to enjoy sushi at our restaurant, we're certainly welcome to do so. However, parking your car outside will disturb other customers and cause disruption to a restaurant." The attractive proprietress understood that wealthy people are not to be trifled with, but for the sake of her own business, she bravely stepped forward. Before she could finish her words, however, one of Seiya's bodyguards stepped aside, pulled out a suitcase, and opened it in front of the proprietress. "Our young master would like to dine at your restaurant tonight, but he doesn't want to be disturbed by others, so he's planning to book the entire sushi restaurant." The proprietress of Iroha Sushi was about to refuse, but when she caught a glimpse of the denominations of the banknotes in the suitcase, she was stunned. A whole box full of 10,000 yen bills, that must be tens of millions. And the other party spent so much money just to book a whole place for a meal? Where the hell did this rich young man come from? He is so extravagant and inhumane. Rich people, what a big deal. We waited in line for ages to get our sushi. Are you really going to kick me out? That's right, damn capitalism. I'll die of gluttony, starve to death, or spend all my money on sushi today, but I won't leave this shop. What can you do to me? Are you going to beat me to death?" Hearing the customer's overreaction, the proprietress of Iroha Sushi, though envious of Seiya's offer for the entire restaurant, could only offer a look of resignation and apology. "I'm truly sorry. While Iroha Sushi isn't very famous, it's a long-standing establishment. If you'd like to book the entire restaurant again next time, please make a reservation in advance. However, we have other customers here today, so we can't accept your offer. Please forgive me." Honestly, the proprietress was envious of the tens of millions of yen she could earn for the entire restaurant. After all, she didn't know if she'd ever meet someone as wealthy as him again. Tens of millions of yen for the entire restaurant would be equivalent to the restaurant's entire second half of revenue. But unfortunately, if she drove away all the other customers, it would undoubtedly offend the public, and her shop would be difficult to operate in the future. When rejecting Seiya's request, the proprietress also carefully observed the expressions of Seiya and his group. After all, anyone who could casually spend tens of millions of yen to book a restaurant must be no ordinary person. Besides, the other party looked like a mere child. Children from wealthy families like this were often accustomed to being arrogant and domineering from a young age. If they angered him, he would be very sorry. "I apologize for making such an unreasonable request without a prior appointment. However, I have an important guest today, and he really enjoys your sushi, so I have no choice but to do so. I'm deeply sorry for the disruption to your dining experience. So, if you can please excuse me, I'll compensate you tenfold for your orders today. And if you play the virtual reality game Second World, I'll also give you a special gift package." To the surprise of the Iroha proprietress and the patrons present, they had initially expected the person who had booked the entire restaurant to be an arrogant and domineering young man. Instead, he turned out to be a polite young man. Not only was there no trace of arrogance, but he even bowed humbly to everyone present. "It's him, the eldest son of the Suzuki Group, the genius boy Suzuki Seiya who developed the Second World. What? No wonder I felt he looked familiar before. Boy, is this really him?" If it was a rich young man from another group, booking a whole theater would probably be a way to show off his wealth, but if it's the eldest son of the Suzuki Group, he must have something important to do. After all, his reputation and name are well known in the circle. And he has been on TV many times. From the launch of Cocoon to the release of Second World, Seiya is no longer as unknown as before, but has a very high reputation even among the general public. Chapter 362 Do you want to be the boss of the organization? Previously, some sushi restaurant customers had been arguing because Seiya's booking the entire restaurant was not on their best interest, and some simply disliked wealthy people. However, when Seiya presented his compensation plan and learned that he was the heir to the Suzuki Group and a recently sought-after prodigy, their attitudes suddenly changed. Thanks to the social influence of the Second World, Seiya had long been hailed by the authorities as the pride of the younger generation. Naturally, his promises were no empty promises. Tenfold compensation plus a special, priceless gift pack from the Second World, what reason could be denied? So, quickly, in just over 10 minutes, the entire Iroha Sushi restaurant, having received their various rewards, departed contentedly. As for the proprietress of Iroha Sushi, upon learning that Seiya was the young prodigy so frequently featured on television, Her attitude toward him suddenly became even more enthusiastic. Not to mention the tens of millions of yen in renting out the place. Even Seiya, the sought-after prodigy, has praised their sushi. The star power alone is sure to skyrocket Iroha Sushi's fame. Master Suzuki, what kind of sushi do you like? Do you have any dietary restrictions? And would you like someone to serve you while you eat? The proprietress excitedly invited Seiya to a seat, then directed the waitress to find a good angle for a photo. She'd print the photos and display them prominently in the shop. Wouldn't it be unwise for their sushi to be 20% or 30% more expensive? What? You think it's expensive? Even Seiya, the son of the Suzuki Group and the prodigy behind the virtual reality game Second World, praised their sushi. A bit more expensive than at regular sushi restaurants, isn't that normal? Madam, I heard you have a talented sushi chef named Kananori Wakita. Could you please have him come over and make sushi for us? And if possible, please get us a private room, as I don't like being disturbed while I'm eating. After hearing Seiya's words, the lady boss was visibly stunned, but then, fueled by her cash flow, she quickly left with a smile on her face. Rum was also visibly stunned when the lady boss of Iroha Sushi called him over. In fact, Rum had noticed Seiya the moment he brought Kurosawa to the sushi restaurant. However, he didn't immediately flee because he had a certain degree of confidence that Seiya and Kurosawa's arrival at the restaurant was likely accidental. Although Kurosawa was his trusted confidant, he always assigned him tasks directly by phone. Even Kurosawa wouldn't have known he was lurking in the sushi restaurant. There were many sushi chefs in the restaurant, and his skills were only mediocre. It was unlikely he would be able to handle something like entertaining the wealthy son of the Suzuki Group. However, when the proprietress called him out from the kitchen and said that a distinguished guest had specifically requested him to entertain, Rum knew he was exposed. Not to mention that since the last aquarium incident, Jin had spread rumors about Seiya. Seeing how well prepared he was this time, it was clear that even if he wanted to escape, he wouldn't be able to. After pulling out his phone and sending a message to the organization, hoping they could send a powerful assistant to help, Rum gathered his thoughts and, feigning composure, walked towards Seiya's private room. Hello, Master Suzuki. I'm Wakita Kananori, our sushi chef. It's a real honor to meet you. Seiya, who had been sipping his tea, slowly raised his head upon seeing the dark-skinned, buck-toothed man before him. I've heard of you for a long time, Mr. Wakita Kananori. No, Mr. Rum. And Mr. Rum, you made the right decision not to run away this time. I put so much effort into finding you. If you wouldn't even give me a chance to see you, I'd be furious. Seiya approached with such bravado, naturally fearing Rum's escape. And indeed, as he had just said, if Rum had tried to flee, Seiya would have killed him, but he would have certainly suffered. His simple, honest exterior was merely his usual facade. As the second in command of the Black Organization, he had never been challenged in such a tone. But the situation was more pressing than anyone could handle. Putting aside Seiya, whom Jin had praised as a god, Rum had no confidence in Kurosawa, who sat beside him. Rum's high position didn't guarantee him any fighting prowess. Therefore, until the organization's reinforcements arrived, Rum didn't want to provoke Seiya or confront him. Master Suzuki, since you already know my identity, I won't hide it any further. Master Suzuki, what are you planning on doing here? Revenge for what happened before? Even I, while holding a position within the organization, am not a true master. Rum knew that if Seiya was out to kill him, there was no need for all this nonsense. Either he had something he needed, so he didn't kill him immediately, or he had never intended to kill him from the beginning. Rum, I've heard about you from Kurosawa before. While you hold a prominent position in the organization, you seem to be only second in command. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on becoming the organization's boss? If so, I'd be happy to help you. Hearing Seiya's sudden and decisive move the moment he sat down, both Rum, who was standing before him, and Kurosawa, who was sitting beside him, were visibly stunned. While the organization's influence was undoubtedly immense, with the support of the Suzuki Group and Seiya, Rum felt he had a chance to dethrone Karasuma Rinaya, the organization's boss. However, this thought had barely surfaced before Rum quickly dismissed it. Supporting him as the organization's boss? It sounded nice, but if the Suzuki Group truly intervened, wouldn't it mean the organization would have no secrets left in front of Seiya? And if he took control of the organization, and then they took control of him, wouldn't he, too, be perpetually in second place? After considering this, Rum decided that maintaining the status quo was more beneficial for him. At least now he wouldn't be controlled by others. Unfortunately, I have no intention of betraying the organization. Not to mention I'm a veteran member, our boss and I have known each other for many years. How could I betray him for my own benefit? Happy New Year's Eve everyone. Chapter 363 You can call me Red Star or Guo Tao. Since Mr. Rum is unwilling to cooperate, then unfortunately, I can only, looking at Seiya who suddenly stood up, Rum's originally calm face instantly revealed a little panic and said, Master Suzuki, are you sure you want to be an enemy of our organization? It is undeniable that you do possess power that we cannot understand, and the background of the Suzuki group is also huge, but you must know that the organization's influence is spread all over the world. No matter how powerful you are, there will always be times when you can't guard against it. What happened last time was indeed our organization's fault, but didn't you kill 2 killers from our organization? There is no conflict of interest or position between our organization and you. Why not let such misunderstandings disappear completely? Although Rum is the second in command of the organization, no matter how high his status is, he is also afraid of death. Turning hostility into friendship? That's not impossible, but in exchange, Mr. Rum, can you at least let me know the true origins of your organization's boss? You know everything about me, but I know nothing about yours. Isn't that a bit unfair? Faced with Seiya's proposed exchange, Rum's expression was torn. As the second in command of the organization, he did know some information about the boss, but even the members knew very little about the boss's identity. If he revealed this information to Seiya, wouldn't he be doomed? But he had already refused Seiya once before. If he refused again, Rum was almost certain that Seiya would be furious and kill him. It's not that I'm deliberately concealing anything, but even I know very little about that, sir. So far, the only information I can offer is that he's named Karasuma Rinaya, and his email address, with a keystroke melody 7 children. Of course, as the second in command in the organization, I also have direct access to him. As the second in command in the organization, Rum's identity is a mystery to most. Even now, just a glance at Rum reveals that his buck-toothed, older man appearance is a deliberate disguise. If even Rum, the second in command, is so secretive, then Seiya naturally doesn't expect to uncover Karasuma Rinaya's true identity right out of the gate. Seiya had already sensed Rum's reservations, but even if he dared to reveal the true identity of the organization's leader, who could guarantee that the Karasuma Rinaya Rum saw would actually be that, sir? Whenever Rum met with the organization's leaders, he would deliberately disguise himself and use a transformation device. Could that sir truly trust Rum? Seiya certainly didn't believe it. However, Rum had a way to contact that sir directly, something Seiya hadn't anticipated. Regardless of the other party's true identity, the person Rum was contacting, Karasuma Rinaya, was undoubtedly him. Then, please, Mr. Rum, contact that sir. I'd like to speak with him privately. Rum was about to refuse Seiya's request, but he quickly realized that Kurosawa had come up behind him, holding a dagger to his throat. Kuakeo, if it weren't for me, you would have died at Vermouth's hands long ago, and this is how you repay me now. Rum hated traitors with all his might. He was furious that Kurosawa, once his confidant, now held a knife to his throat. Whatever your intentions, you did save my life once, but what I've done for you over the years has long since repaid your debt. When you ordered Jin and the others to kill me, the original Kurosawa was already dead. Now I serve only one man. Feeling the cold touch on his neck getting closer and closer to his aorta, Rum, with no other choice, finally gave in and pulled out his phone, dialing a specially marked number. After a brief wait, a neutral voice, indistinguishable between male and female, answered from Rum's phone. What's going on? Contact me now. Before Rum could say anything, Seiya reached out and snatched the phone from his hand. Mr. Karasuma Rinaya? Nice to meet you. I wonder if you could give me a chance to talk to you. Who are you? Did that impatient Rum finally fall into the hands of others? Listening to the childish voice coming from the microphone, Karasuma Rinaya was a little surprised, but he didn't seem to have much emotional fluctuation about the fall of Rum, the second in command of the organization. From the codenames Karasuma Rinaya gave the organization, it seems you're quite fond of fine liquor. Well, to suit your taste, you can also call me Red Star or Guo Tao. Of course, if that name doesn't suit your taste, you can also call me Suzuki Seiya. After hearing Seiya's self-proclaimed name, there was a moment's silence on the other end of the line before he continued in a slow voice. So you're the genius boy. I didn't expect you to be even more capable than I imagined, finding Rum's location in such a short time. You contacted me through Rum, so it shouldn't be just to show off or assert your strength, right? Tell me your purpose directly. Karasuma Rinaya admitted that he had misjudged Suzuki Seiya. Initially, he had thought Seiya was just a gifted prodigy. But after the aquarium incident, through Jin and the others' reports, the battle scars left at the scene, and especially the wreckage of the Ferris wheel, which looked like it had been slashed by a sharp blade, Karasuma Rinaya clearly understood that Suzuki Seiya was more than he seemed. Karasuma Rinaya speculated that Seiya must be backed by an organization or power, and that his scientific research and technology were far more advanced than theirs. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the global impact the advent of the Second World would have. Their organization had spent years infiltrating undercover agents into key institutions around the world, but with the Second World's influence, Seiya could do the same in just a few years, and even better. When virtual reality becomes an integral part of people's lives, Seiya's leverage and resources will be undeniable, even for a nation. Given such a vast and ambitious plan, Karasuma Rinaya suspected that Seiya wasn't just one person, but a powerful organization behind him. Chapter 364 Who let Kurosawa hold the thigh? A project of this scale in a virtual reality world, even with the assistance of artificial intelligence, would not be completed in a short period of time. Even if Seiya were a gifted young man, this would still be the case, unless he had a massive technical team behind him. Karasuma Rinaya naturally had no idea that Seiya had a powerful team behind him, but that team consisted entirely of himself. The development of the virtual reality game Second World was originally a collaboration between him and other worlds, and due to shared memories, it's not wrong to say that he had a team behind him. Mr. Karasuma Rinaya, while I don't know your exact background, I've heard some of your organization's goals. Now, let me ask you, do you wish to have a long life? As Seiya spoke these words, he could clearly hear the sound of glass shattering on the other end of the line. Evidently the teacup or wine glass that Karasuma Rinaya had been holding had just fallen to the ground. Clearly, Seiya's words had finally caused the Black Organization's boss to show a noticeable wave of emotion. What do you, or the organization behind you, want from me? Seiya was visibly taken aback by the other party's response. When did he have an organization behind him? However, Seiya didn't bother explaining this. Since the other party was so fond of imagining things, he could let them imagine as much as they wanted. While the technology our organization possesses can't grant immortality, it does have the ability to cure illness and prolong life. But in exchange, as Seiya and Karasuma Rinaya exchanged words, Rum, listening nearby, became dry-mouthed. For them now, status and wealth were already a given, their only concern now was the gradual fading of their lives. So, when Seiya mentioned his possession of such technology, Rum was undoubtedly intrigued. Unfortunately, however, as Seiya was discussing the details, Rum simply walked away from Rum and walked to the corner of the room. Furthermore, this act of avoiding suspicion wasn't Seiya's own initiative, it was the Black Organization's boss, Karasuma Rinaya, who had suggested it. Rum was deeply displeased with Karasuma Rinaya's actions, yet he felt helpless. After all, despite being the second in command in the organization, he was no different from any other member when it came to Karasuma Rinaya. Rum didn't know the specifics of Seiya's conversation with Karasuma Rinaya, but when the Black Organization team he had previously sought assistance from arrived at the sushi restaurant, Jin, his arm in a cast, relayed an order from the organization's boss. From now on, no one in the organization was to oppose Seiya or the Suzuki group behind him. Kurosawa, who had betrayed the organization, should have been eliminated according to the organization's rules, but he had lucked out and landed in the good graces. Thank you for the treat, Mr. Rum. I have to say your sushi, Mr. Rum, is quite delicious. I hope to see you again. Having achieved his goal, Seiya said goodbye to Rum and left with Kurosawa. Rum, who initially didn't fully grasp Seiya's meaning, soon realized that Jin, Vodka, and Gil, whose arm was still in a cast, were positioned to surround him. Jin, what are you planning to do? Having contacted Karasuma Rinaya directly under Seiya's threat, Rum had expected some form of punishment, but he hadn't anticipated it would come so quickly or so severely. Rum, I'm sure you're well aware of the consequences of betraying the organization. You've said it yourself before, right? You hate traitors, don't you? Rum was no fool. From Seiya's words before leaving, and Jin and the others' actions, he understood that they were planning to kill him. This puzzled Rum. While he had, to some extent, betrayed Karasuma Rinaya, it was entirely due to the situation, and the information he provided to Seiya was essentially innocuous. He was a veteran member of the organization, after all. And Karasuma Rinaya was actually going to let Jin kill him over such a thing? Are you crazy? I haven't betrayed the organization at all. I'm the second in command. I'm going to call the boss right now and find out what's going on. Seeing Rum still trying to make a phone call, Jin and the others didn't try to stop him. Just as Rum, still panicking, called the boss again, the other party seemed to understand what he was trying to ask. He replied in a very calm voice, "You know too much? And it was you who gave the order to kill Kurosawa, wasn't it? You must die in order to cooperate with the forces behind Suzuki Seiya and keep them satisfied." Hearing Karasuma Rinaya's emotionless voice, Rum's face paled. But then, after a brief pause, he burst into a self-deprecating laugh. Anyone who knows too many secrets must die. It was Kurosawa before, but now it's my turn. What a twist of fate. He'd previously ordered Jin to kill Kurosawa because he knew too much and was a potential traitor. But Rum hadn't anticipated how things would change. Just this short time later, he'd be killed by the organization for the same reason. Kurosawa, thanks to his connections, not only survived, but is now living a comfortable life. But Rum, fearing a more serious fate, was in for a lot of trouble. Seeing Jin and his companions slowly approaching him, Rum naturally refused to accept his fate. He quickly grabbed a handful of flour from the sushi-making area nearby and threw it at Jin and the others. "Shoot him. Don't let him get away." Suddenly obstructed, Jin ordered vodka and Keel to fire, but Kurosawa knocked their pistols down before they could raise them. Although Rum was puzzled as to why Kurosawa suddenly came to his rescue, he did not miss the opportunity and simply chose to smash the window beside him and escape. "What do you mean, man?" Looking at Kurosawa, who was suppressing vodka and Keel alone, Jin looked at Seiya in front of him with anger. Although Jin received orders from the boss not to attack Seiya and his family again, Seiya's behavior of stopping them from killing Rum still made Jin furious. "You want to eliminate the traitors? That's your organization's business, don't involve me in this. I was the one who specifically asked Rum to come over to make sushi. If he dies here now, how am I going to explain to the detective? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels." Chapter 365, Seiya's Classification Groups. Seiya's reasons were quite compelling, so in the end, Jin could only glare at Seiya and order vodka and Kira to continue hunting Rum. Of course, under normal circumstances, given Jin's temper, even if the organization had told him not to harm Seiya, he would have at least given him a couple of slaps. Unfortunately, even without Kurosawa, Seiya alone wouldn't have had the nerve to do that. Having witnessed how Seiya dispatched Chianti with ease, Jin now hesitated to show off in front of Seiya. After all, Rum, the organization's second-in-command, had been abandoned by the boss just because he had ordered Kurosawa's death. To directly offend Seiya would be tantamount to courting death. Kurosawa's earlier move to knock vodka and Killer's pistols away was naturally at Seiya's behest. Besides the potential trouble Seiya had previously suggested, Rum's death would also serve to resolve Kurosawa's grievances. Regardless, it's a fact that Rum saved Kurosawa from vermouth, and this time Kurosawa has fully repaid Rum's debt. Furthermore, Rum's escape is actually a good thing for Seiya and the others. After all, as the former second-in-command of the organization, Rum might not be as skilled or as intelligent as Karasuma Rinaya, but after so many years in the organization, he must have his own power and influence. A falling out between the organization's boss and the second-in-command will undoubtedly have a significant impact on the organization. Therefore, until Rum is completely eliminated, they likely won't be able to cause trouble again for a while. "Master Suzuki, what happened here?" The owner of Iroha Sushi Restaurant rushed over due to the loud noise coming from the private room. Seeing the flour on the floor and the shattered window, she asked in surprise. "Mr. Kanonori Wakita's sushi was delicious, but just as I was halfway through my meal, several men in black burst in. It looked like Mr. Wakita had borrowed money from a loan shark. A fight ensued, and Mr. Wakita bolted through the window and fled. Madam, I think you'd better call the police," Hearing Seiya's unblinking lie, the owner of Iroha Sushi restaurant panicked and went to the police. As Seiya left, the owner apologized profusely, saying that today's incident was a complete accident and hoping Seiya wouldn't lose faith in their sushi restaurant and would come back often. As a token of her apology, the owner of Iroha Sushi restaurant even gave him a coupon for 7 free servings of sushi. Seiya initially refused, but Kirito, standing by, accepted it with a look of satisfaction, saying he could bring the children over for sushi next time. Seiya had no intention of immediately handing over the technology he had traded with a black organization's boss. Of course, the main reason was that he couldn't replicate such a thing in this world at the moment. However, Seiya had also considered that, after all, this scientific world wasn't scientific at all. If more Seiyas appeared in the Heart's Gathering domain in the future, perhaps he could actually create some longevity potion in this world. After dealing with the black organization's concerns and finishing up company matters, Seiya fell into a long-awaited deep sleep and entered the Heart's Gathering domain. Compared to other Seiyas struggling in high-level martial arts worlds, the Seiya of the scientific world didn't visit this cheat room very often. After all, because the worlds of other high-powered Seiyas were too dangerous. Before they could achieve complete invincibility, they constantly worried that as passers-by, they would be killed by some inexplicable plot twist. Therefore, to improve their strength, they would frequently visit the Heart's Gathering domain. While self-training could increase strength, it was clearly not as fast as directly using illegal third-party software. What if a powerful figure arrived in the Heart Realm? With their power and memories shared, wouldn't they be able to soar instantly? Would that be 1,000 times more powerful than cultivating on their own? What? You're saying that playing it down and using cheats is shameful. The true protagonist should rely on themselves, step by step, to become the strongest? Then Seiya would have to make a good argument. We are all Seiyas, and every Seiya has achieved their current strength and wisdom through their own hard work. Now that resources are just being shared, does that mean they're no longer independent? Hey, the Shota group is here too. I remember you were from the elementary school world of death gods, right? I envy you guys from the lower level martial arts worlds. With your current strength, you can practically dominate your own world. You don't have to worry about anything except chasing girls and showing off. As more and more Seiyas arrived in the Heart Realm, they were roughly divided into several categories based on their characteristics. For example, there was the Shota group, with childlike appearances like Kasperman Seiya and Mai Seiya. Then there was the Alien group, with Balman Seiya, Kuruji Seiya, and Eevee Seiya. The high-risk group consists of Naruto Seiya, Jujutsu Seiya, Giant Seiya, and Raven Seiya. Then there's the technology group, centered around Tiga Seiya and Sword Seiya. Finally, there's the R-Anime Seiya, a group all his own, the Wealth group, who is also the envy of every other Seiya. They say there are no ugly women in the anime world, but Seiyas from other worlds are either in high-risk situations, their lives constantly on the line, so how can they find the time to pursue women? Or, their worlds aren't too dangerous, but their physical conditions don't allow it. Sword Seiya and I both prefer Seiya. In their own worlds, they're probably the archetypes of male protagonists in harem anime. But harem anime is harem anime, and there's a difference between it and serious R-anime. First, the female characters in harem anime aren't completely clueless. If their driving skills aren't good enough, they could end up in a bloodbath or end up being chopped off by a hatchet. But it's different for Reban Seiya. Not only does he have a kidney that never loses its energy, but he also has no logic when it comes to girls. Push this today, push that tomorrow, what about Sherfield? It doesn't exist at all. What if the girls start arguing? Don't look at Seiya Kagaku as a super-rich second generation in his own world, and he has seen many beautiful women. He even took a bath with Kirito tonight. But he also envied Reban Seiya. If he went to his world, maybe he could pull a big cart, but the key point is that his world is the Kagaku world. Chapter 366, Newcomer from Food Wars. Although Seiya in my world, like me, is a member of the Shota group, Kagaku Seiya knows that this is due to the unique environment of the Heart Realm. In his own world, he's already a high school student, adopted by 2 sexy women. But for him, Kagaku Seiya, it's different. Given the timeline of Kagaku's world, where there are more than 10 springs and more than 10 winters a year, and phones transition from flip phones to touchscreens, Kagaku Seiya wouldn't even be able to graduate from first grade, let alone high school. Thinking of this, Kagaku Seiya suddenly felt that his search for other Seiyas to find longevity technology was completely unnecessary. In his own world's bizarre timeline, almost everyone is immortal. He couldn't understand why the Black Organization's boss was still trying to find a way to achieve eternal life. If possible, Seiya in the science world now desires not technology that grants longevity, but rather technology that allows him to rapidly grow. Seeing the long-absent Seiya, the other Seiyas who frequently visit the area greeted him and, pulling him aside, began sharing power and memories. Under the power of the Goldfinger, Seiya could sense that he had become even stronger. However, this was completely useless to him, as in his world, his strength was already unbeatable. Even if he became even stronger, he would still be the strongest in the world, with virtually no real change. Similarly, after the resource sharing, the other Seiyas also saw Seiya's memories. It's true that being able to punch Jin, kick a Shinigami elementary school student, and even bathe with a beauty like Kurosawa is truly enviable. But the point is that even Seiya Keizu can only watch, and can't do anything else. Brother, I used to think that those of us in the high-risk world, as well as aliens like Rolling Beast, were already quite miserable, but now it seems that you are the worst off. No matter how dangerous the high-power world is, the boss will be overthrown sooner or later. Rolling Beast and Kirakoma are aliens now, and there is always hope of transformation. But you are in the world of Keizu, a first-grade elementary school student, and you are afraid you will have to study for the rest of your life. Hearing what Naruto Seiya said, Seiya Keizu wanted to refute, but he soon found that if he followed a weird timeline of his own world, he probably wouldn't be able to get hard. Well, elementary school students also have their advantages. At least even if I enter and exit the women's bathhouse openly, others won't say anything about me. I can bathe with beautiful girls and royal sisters, can you, Riemann, Seiya? As for me, there is no problem at all. I can even bathe with more than one beautiful girl and even play some fun little games. I pushed Seiya. I shouldn't have any problem either. It's more like Yuko and the others always try to treat me like the little kid I used to be, but I always refuse. Kagaku Seiya, how could you possibly repair it? You damned bastards, have you ever considered my feelings? Kagaku Seiya was just complaining about his dissatisfaction with the life winners in Seiya's group when, unexpectedly, a door suddenly appeared before them. This sudden door wasn't unfamiliar to Seiya and the others present. After all, they had arrived here through the same door. The system seemed to call their shared space the Heart Domain, but the Seiyas didn't know the exact extent of this domain. They only knew that they arrived here after completing certain prerequisites in their own worlds, passing through a long corridor, and finally opening a white door, ultimately arriving here. And as Seiya's visits to the Heart Domain increased, they began to understand some of its characteristics. The area of the Heart's Domain increases as more Seiyas appear, and the location of each Seiya's door remains fixed. Furthermore, upon entering the Heart's Domain, Seiya's appearance becomes fixed. Just like how Seiya, when I first saw him, was a young boy, even if he grew up to be a high school student in his own world, upon entering the Heart's Domain, he would revert to his initial appearance. The locations of the doors of the Seiyas present were already familiar to the veterans of the Heart's Domain. When a door appeared in this location, veterans like Hokage Seiya could bet that it was a newcomer. It's been a while since we've seen a newcomer. I wonder if he's a winner or a big shot. The newcomer's appearance immediately caught the attention of the other Seiyas present. With a click, the white door opened, and the new Seiya emerged. The newcomer, Seiya, was approximately 15 years old, or roughly the age of a high school student. As everyone knows, high school students make up almost 99% of male protagonists in anime, so the age of the newcomer, Seiya, wasn't surprising to the Seiyas present. What was odd, however, was that in most anime, high school characters are typically depicted in school uniforms, yet the newcomer, Seiya, was wearing a white chef's uniform. Oh my god, am I time traveling for the second time? That's not right, isn't it? I just tried that Yukihira Soma's eccentric cuisine. It might be a little unpalatable, but it's not going to kill me, is it? Shokugeki Seiya was stunned when he saw the strangely dressed people staring at him intently. But he quickly realized that he was probably dreaming. Yukihira Soma's eccentric dish of shredded squid and peanut butter, while not sending him directly to death, must have put him into deep coma, otherwise why would he have such a bizarre dream? As for why Seiya felt he was dreaming, the reason was actually quite simple. Because among the figures in front of him who were looking at him like a monkey, Shokugeki Seiya not only saw a few guys who looked exactly like him. He even saw creatures such as dual monsters Kurumi Maru, Digimon Grunt, Pokemon Eevee and others. You have to know that although he has traveled through time, these creatures should only exist in the anime of the world he lived in his previous life. Not to mention that the world he is in now is a world dominated by cooking. The fact that creatures such as Grunt and Kurumi Maru appeared in front of him is already quite unscientific. Moreover, in the world of Shokugeki no Soma where he is now, other people don't know about creatures such as Pokemon and dual monsters, so based on the above, Shokugeki Seiya quickly judged that he should not have woken up from his dream yet. Chapter 367 My family is actually the heir of the dark cuisine world. Damn it. I clearly had a dream about my past life, but why were there a bunch of grown men in my dream instead of cute girls? What the hell is a Kirito? I like things like dark magician girl or dragon maid. No. According to the world of Shokugeki no Soma, delicious food can bring happiness and joy. So the reason I'm having a nightmare right now is entirely because of the dark cooking of Yakuza Soma Yukihira? Shokugeki Seiya was still marveling at the powerful effects of Yakuza's dark cooking when the other Seiyas heard him muttering and, too lazy to talk, walked over to him. Wait a minute, even though you all have handsome faces like me, I still can't accept the idea of you taking advantage of yourself. Upon hearing Shokugeki Seiya's words, the other Seiyas' faces darkened. They could admit that they were handsome, but to call them gay was a bit unreasonable. We are all Seiya. Although our experiences are different, our essence is the same. If you treat your brothers as gay, how can your XP be normal? Seeing several Seiyas who look exactly like him but are dressed in strange costumes, as if they are playing cosplay, rushing towards him, Shokugeki Seiya's first reaction is to resist. But when the Hokage Seiya pressed his hand to his head, Shokugeki Seiya immediately stopped struggling. This is not to say that he submitted, but because of the physical contact, a large amount of memories and power suddenly flooded into his body like a tide. A few minutes later, Shokugeki Seiya climbed up from the ground again, and his eyes became excited when he looked at the other Seiyas. I was really puzzled. As a member of the vast army of time travelers, why am I so lonely? I don't even have a cheat code. After all this trouble, it turns out I just didn't activate it before. Damn it. If this cheat had been activated earlier, why would I have struggled in my own world for over a decade? With a sharing of power, Shokugeki Seiya gained the memories and power of the Seiya from the other world, and the Seiya from the other world also shared Shokugeki Seiya's memories. Generally speaking, Shokugeki Seiya and Touken Seiya's experiences don't overlap much. After traveling to their own worlds, one inherited his family's kendo gym, and the other inherited his family's flower restaurant. There are some differences, though. Touken Seiya, who inherited the kendo gym from his grandfather, possesses a remarkable talent for swordsmanship. In his first year of junior high, he won the National Youth Kendo Championship. In comparison, the Seiya of Shokugeki no Soma's world has a much more difficult life. The family flower restaurant was owned by Seiya's mother, who also seemed to be a very accomplished chef. Seiya, influenced by her since childhood, learned many dishes and cooking techniques, but his culinary talent was only above average. As everyone knows, cooking is a very fundamental skill. Compared to the exceptionally talented Soma Yukihira, who worked next door, Seiya spent a full decade mastering knife skills, wok flipping, and controlling the heat. With his amazing mother guiding him, Seiya had always believed that even with his mediocre talent, as the saying goes, hard work makes up for lack of talent, and that as the saying goes, the early bird catches the worm. He would be able to make a living in this world once he reached the age of 30 as a magician. However, what Seiya hadn't anticipated was that, determined to rely on his parents for support, he woke up a few months ago to find that his mother had left a letter and disappeared without a word. The letter clearly stated that things were happening in the dark cuisine world back home in China, and as one of its leaders, she had to return to deal with some matters. Because her mother felt a return trip would be dangerous, she had left Seiya in Japan. In addition to the letter, Seiya's mother also left him a cookbook and a set of knives, stating that he had mastered all the basics of a chef. While this incident was a fortuitous one, it was an opportunity for Seiya to grow. The letter stated that she had prepaid 3 months' rent for him and had also left enough money on his card for food. Seiya's mother didn't specify when she would return, but she did give him a test. If the restaurant failed or closed before she returned, she would punish him. After reading his mother's letter, Seiya was stunned. He had always believed that the world he'd traveled to was the Shokugeki no Soma world, a world dominated by cooking. In this culinary world, he was just one of the many travelers. While he lacked any special talents or cheat codes, the world was incredibly safe. Furthermore, the women in this world all looked incredibly sexy, like those in anime, and every time they ate a dish, it was a truly captivating sight. Many of the women who had dined at his restaurant, after enjoying his mother's cooking, would often send gifts to Seiya daily. However, a few months later, upon seeing the letter his mother had left behind, along with a knife set and recipes, Seiya was stunned. His family was a descendant of the 7-star blade, Ren, who had reigned over the dark world of cuisine over a century ago. To be more precise, their ancestors had been disciples of Ren, and Seiya's father was a third-generation disciple. Seiya's mother was no ordinary person either. Her ancestors were also descendants of Xiong'en, a master of the dark world of cuisine from over a century ago. Because the chef group led by the culinary god Liu Anxing defeated the dark cuisine world, the descendants of this world have been struggling for over 100 years. Seiya's adopted father was killed in a food battle. To escape his enemies, Seiya's mother brought the young boy to this land for refuge. From a young age, his mother urged Seiya to focus on knife skills, as both the 7-star blade, inherited from his father, and the one-jang green blade, inherited from his mother, require exquisite skill. Besides the recipes, the knife set Seiya's mother left behind is a set of 7-star blades crafted over a century ago by a master craftsman. Along with the recipes and knives, there are also several ancient books with antique-looking covers. These books contain the 7-star blade techniques, Ryan's 7-star instant blade dance and Argent crystal slash, as well as the dark cuisine world's secret knife technique, Bold Blue Dragon slash. Chapter 368, The cheat has arrived and you can become a top chef directly. Perhaps sensing the dangers of returning to the dark culinary world, Seiya's mother not only passed down her husband's family legacy, including the techniques and secrets of the 7-star blade, Ren, but also passed down her own family's secrets and heritage to him. Seiya's mother's ancestor, Yizhan King Xianjun, had been passed down to this generation, with only Seiya's mother and brother remaining. However, his brother, embroiled in the turmoil of the dark culinary world, has long been missing. Traditionally, long-established culinary families like these refrain from passing down their culinary skills and heritage to others. Even though Seiya's father and mother were married, they would often exchange culinary skills, but they would never covet each other's family heritage. But now, the situation was different. She was the only descendant of Yizhan King Xianjun. If even she met with an accident, the legacy would be truly lost. So, after much deliberation, Seiya's mother left behind Yizhan King Xianjun's secrets, including 7-star breaking army swift cut and tongue taste fatigue. After reading his mother's entire letter, Seiya sighed deeply, deeply shaken. He suspected he'd traveled to fake Shokugeki no Soma world. Chef God Liu Anxing? The dark culinary world? 7-star blade rain? One's Han King Xianjun, aren't they all characters from the Little Chef's family? The Little Chef's background was supposed to be from the late Qin dynasty, so the timeline made sense. But how could his family actually be descended from the dark culinary world? Things like the 7-star instant blade dance, Arhat crystal slash, and Bold Blue Dragon slash all sounded impressive, but with his knife skills, he couldn't possibly perform them. As for his own talent, if he really wanted to learn these amazing secret techniques, he would probably be too old to do it. Seiya's adopted mother naturally knew of his talent, so she left these secret techniques to him, probably more importantly because she didn't want them to be lost. After all, even if her only son's talent was a little weak, who could guarantee that his future children wouldn't be culinary geniuses? After returning to his original world from the so-called heart-gathering domain, Seiya said goodbye to the red-haired boy who was trying to stuff squid shreds into his mouth, then hurried back to his kitchen. After a moment's hesitation, Seiya pulled a red sea bream from the freezer and unfolded the set of 7-star swords his adopted mother had left him. With a slam of his palm down on the table, the recoil from the table sent the several-pound sea bream flying into the air. Almost as soon as the fish took flight, Seiya, with incredible speed, unsheathed 2 of the 7-star swords. The thin knife sliced through the fish's belly, the bayonet slashed through the bones, and the short knife sliced the flesh. With a dazzling flurry of maneuvers, the once whole sea bream fell back into thin, flaky slices that landed on the plate. The technique Seiya had just employed was the 7-star sword Ren's secret technique, the 7-star instant blade dance. Ever since acquiring the 7-star sword and its accompanying secret technique, Seiya had repeatedly attempted to learn it. Sadly, despite wasting countless resources, Seiya had never been able to master such impressive knife skills and techniques. However, after arriving in the heart-gathering domain and sharing the power of the Seiyas from other worlds, the current Seiya succeeded with just one attempt. This isn't to say Seiya in other worlds possesses a natural talent for cooking, but rather, it's a culinary journey of learning from their strengths and overcoming their weaknesses. His previous inability to master the knife skills of Ren and Xianjun stemmed more from his inability to match their speed and technique. Honestly, sashimi preparation demands both skill and speed, and for ordinary people, slicing sashimi with both dexterity and speed to create perfectly thick, even slices is no easy feat. He had plenty of experience as a chef in this world, at least he had a mother who was a skilled cook. Like Soma Yukihira next door, he'd practically grown up in the kitchen. However, mastering the techniques mastered by Ren and Xianjun required not only experience but also an human physical prowess and skill. He was, at best, an average high school student. Could an average person execute dozens of cuts in seconds, precisely identify the optimal eating spot on the fish, and slice with precision and evenness? Honestly, just a month ago, Seiya felt that the secret techniques his mother had passed down were simply beyond human reach. But for Seiya, now sharing the power of other worlds, he suddenly felt that given enough time, mastering these skills shouldn't be a problem. The vision provided by Prince of Tennis Seiya is what this world calls God's eyes, capable of accurately discerning the most edible parts of food. The swordsmanship provided by Swordmaster Seiya, due to the similarity of their different paths, has transformed Seiya's barely passable knife skills into masterful proficiency. Of course, even more important is his improved physical fitness and strength. Seiya can now not only slash dozens of times in an instant, but can also easily flip over iron walks weighing over 10 pounds. Thanks to Digimon Seiya's fire-based abilities, he can now freely control the heat. While the powers of Seiya in other worlds aren't particularly related to culinary skills, just as any skill from Prince of Tennis can be applied to tennis, in this world dominated by cooking, the power Seiya gained from his otherworldly self can also be applied to cooking. Of course, becoming familiar with the powers he had acquired and applying them to cooking required a period of practice and adjustment, and for this reason, Seiya had closed the restaurant for a full week. When Ren's restaurant wasn't open today, does Yukihira know what happened? A girl in a blue sailor suit and short black hair, carrying a school bag, looked at the Wenren restaurant in front of her with a sign saying it was temporarily closed, and looked at Soma Yukihira next to her with a worried look on her face. The girl's name was Kirito, and she was a classmate of Seiya in Soma's high school. Because she had always had a crush on Seiya, she would go to Seiya's family restaurant to eat every day. To be honest, ever since Seiya's mother returned to her hometown and the restaurant was officially inherited by Seiya, the business of the restaurant can be described as declining. You have to know that there are only 2 restaurants on this entire street, and there is a reason for that. Although the Yukihira family's Yukihira restaurant is just an ordinary family restaurant, Soma's father, Yukihira Joichiro, is a very good chef. The restaurants that used to be opened on this street went bankrupt one after another because of Yukihira Joichiro's cooking skills. The only restaurant that can compete with Yukihira's restaurant on this street, and even has higher sales than it most of the time, is Seiya's family restaurant. Chapter 369, Family Restaurant on the Brink of Bankruptcy. The Yukihira family restaurant's menu primarily features Japanese cuisine, catering to local tastes. Seiya's restaurant, on the other hand, features dishes primarily from this Honghu region. Despite the differences in local flavors, the fact that they managed to rival Yukihira's, or even slightly surpass it, speaks volumes about how successful their restaurant's business is. Of course, the primary reason for their family restaurant's success is the dedication of Seiya's mother. However, since her mother returned home a month ago, business has steadily declined. Seiya's cooking skills and the flavor of his dishes pale in comparison to his mother, a prominent figure in the world of dark cuisine. Many who once ate at Seiya's restaurant have returned disappointed. The only customers who still dine at Seiya's are longtime patrons who miss their past and friends and classmates like Kirito. However, if a restaurant relies solely on nostalgia and connections to retain its customers, it's not far from bankruptcy. Honestly, while Seiya's cooking wasn't just his mother's, it wasn't bad at all, and even surpassed many regular family restaurants. The problem was, his restaurant was right down the street from Yukihira. As the saying goes, there's no harm without comparison. The prices at family restaurants were similar, and Winran's and Yukihira's weren't far apart. Since the diners weren't gullible shoppers, nor were they nymphomaniacs like Kira's, the choice was obvious. Hey, that guy's probably pushing himself again. A week ago, he suddenly told me he wanted to do some special training, and he wouldn't reopen the restaurant until he was done. But if the food at a typical family restaurant wasn't exceptional, the customers would have already left after such a long hiatus. It was fine when Aunt Winran was around, but now Seiya's customers are mostly just long-time patrons. With him suspending business for so long, I'm afraid even those old patrons will follow suit. Giving Seiya's mother a single surname would be a bit out of place, so we'll just follow the local customs and just give her the surname Winran, because the two restaurants are on the same street. Seiya and Soma Yukihira can be considered close friends who grew up together. However, compared to Soma Yukihira, who has been gifted in the kitchen since childhood and is also a child of the world, Seiya's culinary talent is nothing compared to him. During the days before Seiya's mother returned home, Soma, seeing Seiya constantly being complained about by customers, had suggested that he temporarily close his family restaurant and come help out at his place. After all, they were on the same street, and despite Seiya's mother's aloof demeanor, Yukihira Joichiro had become quite familiar with her over the years. Yukihira Joichiro deeply admired Seiya's mother's impressive cooking skills as a woman, even challenging her to a Shokugeki duel, only to be rejected. To Soma and Joichiro, Winran restaurant wouldn't be the same Winran restaurant without Seiya's mother. While that might be a bit harsh, Seiya's current dishes were undermining the reputation their family had built over the past decade. The decision to have Seiya temporarily close the restaurant and work at their place was actually a way of caring for him. After all, with Seiya alone now, it would be difficult for him to maintain Winran restaurant. If Seiya continued like this, not only would the Winran restaurant's years of reputation be ruined, but his livelihood would also be in jeopardy. Closing the restaurant and working at Xingping's would not only mitigate losses but also protect Winran restaurant's reputation. Once Seiya's mother, Winran Kengying, returned, with her exceptional cooking skills, reopening the restaurant would be a breeze. Furthermore, Xingping Joichiro had always believed that Seiya came from a family of culinary masters. While he had never met Seiya's father, his mother, Winran Kengying, was a skilled cook. As a child, Seiya's talent shouldn't be so mediocre. Thinking of Winran Kengying's usually quiet and aloof demeanor, Xingping Joichiro was deeply skeptical. While Winran Kengying might be impeccable as a chef, she probably wasn't good at teaching others. If Seiya came to work at his house, and he tried to help, perhaps he could truly unleash Seiya's culinary talents. Joichiro couldn't bear to see Seiya's talent go unappreciated, nor could he bear to see the Winran restaurant sign destroyed by Seiya. Out of a mutual admiration for the strong, Joichiro asked Soma to discuss with Seiya about temporarily working and learning at his house. As Seiya's close friend, Soma naturally agreed with his father's proposal. After all, while he didn't want to see his brother driving a Land Rover, no, he didn't want to see him become a master chef, he also didn't want to see him suffer from hardship. Yukihira Soma always believed that anyone who loved cooking would become a great chef. What if Aunt Winran really wasn't good at teaching others, and Seiya could learn by analogy by staying at her house? However, when Soma presented his and his father's idea to Seiya, he repeatedly refused. The last time Yukihira Soma brought it up was last week, when he had Seiya taste his own dark cooking. It was also at that moment that Seiya suddenly excitedly announced that he was going to retreat for a period of special training. And when he reopened, he would surely restore the lost reputation and fame of Winran restaurant and crush Yukihira Soma under his feet. Upon hearing Seiya's words, Yukihira Soma was naturally incredulous, believing him to be pure boasting. As a childhood friend, whether Seiya possessed hidden talent was beyond Yukihira's comprehension. After all, because family inheritance was a secret, Yukihira had never witnessed Aunt Winran teaching Seiya. While Yukihira didn't know whether Seiya had a culinary talent, he knew his cooking prowess well. While Yukihira Soma couldn't defeat his father or Seiya's mother, Aunt Winran, he could easily defeat Seiya. To think he could crush Yukihira Soma after just 1 week of training was truly disrespectful. The gap between them was comparable to the gap between him and Joichiro. Such a chasm, he imagined, could be bridged or even surpassed with just 1 week of closed-door training. Those who know you think you are going for special training, and those who don't think you are just using cheats. Chapter 370 Seiya's Special Seafood Fried Rice. As Soma Yukihira and Kirito chatted, a sudden noise erupted from inside the previously closed Winrin restaurant. Seiya, having opened the gate, was taken aback when he saw the two men standing outside his restaurant. Soma, and Kirito-san, I don't think I told you I'm reopening today, right? How did you know? Hearing Seiya's words, Soma Yukihira and Kirito froze in astonishment, then spoke simultaneously, their faces filled with surprise. Yukihira, are you done with your special training? No, you really plan to continue your business, please leave some thoughts for your old customers. If you keep going on like this, even if Aunt Winrin comes back in a while, she won't be able to save your restaurant's reputation. Kirito, that's great, I was worried that classmate Winrin would be devastated by the blow. Although classmate Winrin's current cooking skills are not as good as Aunt Winrin's, I believe that in time, classmate Winrin will become an excellent chef like your mother. After hearing what the two said, Seiya first rolled his eyes at his bad friend who only hurt his heart, then looked at the girl with short black hair and said, Kirito, thank you for your encouragement, I will definitely not let our restaurant go bankrupt like this. It's a rare opportunity. As two guests of my restaurant's reopening, I wonder if you are interested in tasting my food. Yukihira, I'd like to see what your cooking skills will be like after a week of special training. Kirito, I'm so happy. Winrin-kun actually invited me to try his cooking. We're at the restaurant now, what do you want to eat? Seiya asked from the kitchen window, watching Soma Yukihira and Kirito take their seats. While he didn't think Seiya could surpass him after just a week of training, Yukihira Soma blurted out seafood fried rice when he realized that his seafood fried rice had lost to his father for the 488th time. Kirito, who was standing by, had originally wanted to order one of Seiya's specialties, but Yukihira Soma's words reminded her of the seafood fried rice she had just tasted. Yukihira Soma and his father, Yukihira Joichiro, would periodically compete in cooking competitions, and as mentioned earlier, this was Yukihira Soma's 488th defeat. This time, Soma Yukihira and his father were competing in seafood fried rice, and Kirito was their judge. Unfortunately, the fried rice Soma and Joichiro Yukihira had prepared was so delicious that, aside from the few bites he initially reviewed, the rest had been snatched up by everyone else in the restaurant, leaving the girl starving. For this very reason, as soon as Soma Yukihira mentioned wanting seafood fried rice, Kirito recalled the unforgettable taste of Joichiro Yukihira's fried rice. Seafood fried rice? No problem. Wait a minute, I'll be right there. Fried rice is a fundamental ingredient in Eastern cuisine, but as the saying goes, the simplest dishes are also the most challenging to prepare. Seiya opened the kitchen freezer and pulled out some shrimp and squid. With incredible knife skills and speed, he quickly prepared all the ingredients. The seafood, refrigerated for a while, wouldn't be fresh enough for sashimi, but it was more than enough for affordable seafood fried rice. Seiya's skillful knife swiftly deshelled the shrimp, removing the threads with imperceptible precision. The squid, after its tentacles were separated from its body, was quickly cut into small pieces and rings. After processing all the ingredients, Seiya lit the wok and scooped 2 tablespoons of leftover rice directly into the pot. Besides the crucial importance of controlling the heat, leftover rice is also a key component of fried rice. The iron wok weighed several pounds, and adding ingredients with one hand while tossing the wok with the other demanded immense arm strength. The mediocre taste of Seiya's previous fried rice stemmed largely from his limited stamina, which prevented him from tossing the wok evenly to ensure that each grain of rice was evenly cooked and infused with the flavor of the ingredients. Glancing at the limited power of the stove, Seiya quickly began his own stunts. Flipping the wok with one hand, Seiya reached down with his other hand and launched a stream of flames. As he tossed the wok, the high-heat flames contacted the oil, instantly igniting it. If Soma Yukihira and Kirito were in the kitchen and saw Seiya at this moment, they would surely be astonished to find that Seiya now resembled a firebender, surrounded by flames, seemingly dancing with them. Less than 10 minutes later, Seiya emerged from the kitchen with 2 plates of steaming seafood fried rice. I'm sorry, your seafood fried rice is ready, Soma Yukihira said, looking at the steaming seafood fried rice in front of him with a hint of surprise. Regardless of the taste, the aroma and color alone would have made Soma, familiar with Seiya's skills, realized that he was significantly better than before. Looking at the smug Seiya before him, Yukihira-sama swallowed his saliva and said with a hint of disbelief, "I can't believe how much you've become in less than a week." In contrast to Yukihira-sama's stubborn attitude, Curace, the girl sitting next to him, was already salivating at the sight of Seiya's fried rice. While it felt a bit unbelievable, Curace's instincts told her that Seiya's fried rice would be even more delicious than the one she tasted at Yukihira's restaurant. Scooping up a spoonful of seafood fried rice from the plate, the moment it entered her mouth, both Yukihira-sama and Curace froze in their tracks. After a brief moment, Yukihira-sama opened his eyes in disbelief. As for Kirin, the girl sitting next to Yukihira-sama, her reaction was even more intense. The moment she swallowed the fried rice, her breathing became extremely rapid. Not only did her cheeks turn red, but her legs unconsciously clamped together, and she even let out a sudden, suggestive cry. When the girl came to her senses, she saw Seiya looking at her with a strange expression on his face. She immediately showed an embarrassed expression and said, "I'm sorry, because the seafood fried rice you made, Winrun, is so delicious, so I." Chapter 371 is chicken soup. I added chicken soup. Despite having seen it so many times before, Seiya couldn't help but feel a sense of strangeness every time he saw Curace's expression. He understood that delicious food could make people want more, but even if the food was delicious, a reaction this dramatic was truly outrageous. Those who knew you were eating food would think you were drugged. Despite Seiya's strange expression upon seeing Curace's reaction, he felt a small sense of accomplishment within him. After all, only her adoptive mother, Wenren Kengyings, had ever been able to induce such a state of mind, but now, Seiya could finally drug someone else. This doesn't make sense. How can it be so delicious? It's only been a week. Even if you spent the entire week working on fried rice, you couldn't have improved so much in such a short time. Becoming a great chef isn't something that happens overnight, it requires a wealth of skill and experience. In short, Yukihira Hajime couldn't believe Seiya could have elevated his culinary skills to this level in such a short time. Then there's only one possibility, that is, Seiya, this kid, has been hiding his incompetence in the past, with the purpose of making a splash in front of him. First, he shows weakness to the enemy, making him think that his strength is very weak, and then runs out to slap him in the face at the critical moment. Considering that Soma Yukihira grew up with him and knows him well, this kid is indeed someone who can do such a thing. After all, when the two of them were playing together as children, Seiya often told him about some so-called protagonist slapping in the face plots, and Seiya, this kid, is now obviously playing the role of the protagonist of such a cool story. Curace, who was standing by, did not pay attention to Soma Yukihira's thoughts and emotions. She only thought that the seafood fried rice made by Seiya was extremely delicious, so she just put spoonful after spoonful into her mouth. It's not like Curace has never eaten seafood fried rice before, but it's the first time she has eaten seafood fried rice with such a special taste like Seiya's. With every bite of seafood fried rice, she felt as if she were surrounded by the vast ocean. Swimming in the ocean, she not only saw a multitude of fish, shrimp, and squid swimming around her, but also Seiya, holding her hand and smiling broadly at her. Honestly, while Yukihira Joichiro's previous seafood fried rice had been delicious, the taste of Seiya's was even more unforgettable. Seeing Curace's expression, Soma Yukihira didn't even need to ask him which was better, he knew the answer from his face. Undeterred, Soma Yukihira suspected Curace's reaction might be due to Seiya's filter, so he reluctantly scooped up another spoonful of fried rice. If his first bite had been too much for Soma, in awe of Seiya's skill, he was able to appreciate so much more with his second. Making fried rice requires very high control of the heat. A good chef can even make the fried rice so that each grain is distinct and fully flavored. Through the taste of the rice, Soma Yukihira could feel that Seiya's control of the heat far surpassed his. In addition to the taste, as a chef himself, Soma Yukihira quickly discovered the special features of Seiya's cooking. The most difficult thing to deal with seafood fried rice is the fishy smell brought by the seafood. It is not a simple task to maintain the freshness of the seafood in the fried rice while removing the fishy smell. Is it cilantro? No, it's not just cilantro, there is also a special flavor. After taking the third bite, the fourth bite, and even eating most of the seafood fried rice on the plate, Soma Yukihira finally tasted what that special aroma was. It's ground ginger. You used a small amount of ground ginger and added it to the fried rice to remove the fishy smell from the seafood. But ground ginger alone wouldn't have created such a delicious flavor, so you must have used something else besides cilantro and ginger. Seeing Soma Yukihira scratching his head, Seiya smiled and revealed the answer. In addition to cilantro and ginger, I also added a little broth made from chicken bones. Chicken broth enhances the umami flavor, but broth itself can damage the rice's moisture content, so when adding the broth, it must be heated to very high temperature to evaporate it instantly, locking the umami flavor into the fried rice. Hearing Seiya's explanation, Soma Yukihira was stunned. If Seiya hadn't revealed the answer, he wouldn't have been able to tell. Seiya even added chicken broth to the fried rice. Although he hated to admit it, Soma Yukihira had to admit that Seiya's seafood fried rice surpassed his own, from the control of the heat to the preparation of the ingredients, and the sheer deliciousness of the dish. No, perhaps it wasn't just his own, even his father's seafood fried rice was slightly inferior to Seiya's. Indeed, from the preparation of the ingredients to the technique, and even the ingenious way of bringing out the flavor, your seafood fried rice surpasses what Soma and I have made. You're really good at hiding it, kid. Before, I even thought your mother didn't teach you well enough, or that you just had limited talent. As Soma and his friends ate their fried rice, they were completely unaware that the aroma of the seafood fried rice had already attracted Yukihira Joichiro from next door. After snatching Soma's spoon and taking a bite of Seiya's seafood fried rice, Joichiro offered a similarly pertinent assessment. Hearing that even his own father was ashamed of Seiya's seafood fried rice, Yukihira Soma's face immediately showed a constipated look. Think of Yukihira Soma, who has been challenging his father since he was a child, but he has been defeated 488 times in a row, while this kid Seiya actually succeeded in the challenge with just one try. This is what he often said, 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West, don't bully the young and poor. Damn, it feels really good, but he is not the protagonist. The fried rice in his mouth is obviously delicious, but at this moment, Yukihira Soma feels a chill in his heart. It hurts so much. He thought his childhood friend with limited talent was secretly getting stronger without telling him. How shameless. Hearing Yukihira Joichiro's evaluation, Seiya was also very happy, but he did not become arrogant because of it. Because he knew very well that this time he was able to defeat Yukihira Joichiro by luck. Yukihira Joichiro's seafood fried rice was based on Yukihira Soma's, and it was just a casual dish he made. But Seiya's fried rice was, well, the best he could do at the moment. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372, The Crazy Involution of the Medicine King. Yukihira Joichiro can make more delicious seafood fried rice, while Seiya's current limit is just this, so this lucky victory does not mean that Seiya's cooking skills have surpassed Yukihira Joichiro. Of course, even if it is a lucky victory, it is enough to make Yukihira Soma jealous. Because Yukihira Joichiro may have some spare energy, or even not been serious, but when Soma Yukihira faced his father, he gave it his all. In other words, he and Seiya both gave their all, and now Seiya's seafood fried rice is more delicious, which means that Seiya is stronger than him. When he thought of this, Soma Yukihira felt extremely unwilling. His friend deliberately showed weakness to the enemy, but secretly kept it from him. It was a completely unfair victory. How could Soma Yukihira admit defeat so easily? Seeing Soma Yukihira running out of the store with a look of dissatisfaction on his face, and more than 10 minutes later placing a plate of steaming seafood fried rice in front of Kirito, Yukihira Joichiro beside him just smiled without saying a word. In his opinion, the culinary talent displayed by Seiya is not a bad thing for Soma Yukihira. Only with competitors can one grow, which is why he occasionally accepts challenges from his son. However, compared to him as a father, Seiya is ultimately Soma Yukihira's peer. Although Soma would be unwilling to lose to him, such unwillingness and motivation for growth are obviously far less effective than Seiya losing to people of the same age. Kirito-san, try the seafood fried rice I just made. I guarantee you won't be disappointed this time. Yukihira-san, I really want to eat it, but I can't eat any more. Just one bite, and you'll know my seafood fried rice is definitely better than Seiya's. Hearing Yukihira Soma's plea, Curace could only scoop up a spoonful of fried rice with an embarrassed look on her face. To be honest, Yukihira Soma's seafood fried rice was indeed much better than before, but it was still far from Seiya's. Curace was worried that if she told the truth, Yukihira Soma would make another fried rice for her to try, but she really couldn't lie to him because she didn't think she could make it. After a moment's hesitation, Curace finally decided to follow his heart and said, "I'm sorry, although Yukihira-san's fried rice is delicious, I still think Wenrin-san's seafood fried rice is better." Hearing Curace's answer, Yukihira Soma felt a little dissatisfied and wanted to go back to his shop to try it again, but he was quickly pinned down by Seiya and Yukihira Joichiro, one on each shoulder. "Soma, that's enough. Curace-san is just a girl. You can't force her to try your new fried rice just because you want to win, right? That's right. Don't forget the original purpose of cooking, to bring happiness and joy to people, but you're putting the cart before the horse." Seeing Yukihira Soma being stopped by Seiya and Joichiro, Curace breathed a sigh of relief. While Yukihira Soma's fried rice was indeed delicious, she had already eaten enough today. Damn it. In that case, let's fight it out tomorrow, Seiya. Just as Yukihira Joichiro had thought, if it had just been him, Yukihira Soma wouldn't have been so resentful. After all, most of Yukihira Soma's culinary skills were his. But losing to Seiya was different. The two had grown up together, and they were the same age. Today's defeat was a huge blow to Yukihira Soma, who had always considered himself quite outstanding among his peers, and he wanted to get back at his old self as soon as possible. That night, even late into the night, Yukihira Joichiro could still see Yukihira Soma's back, working tirelessly, through the light from the kitchen. Seeing this, Yukihira Joichiro chose not to interrupt him, but quietly retreated to his room and began writing a farewell letter to his son. He had long considered closing the family shop temporarily and sending Yukihira Soma to Tatsuki Academy. He believed that if he continued to stay in a small restaurant like Yukihira Restaurant, where the only customers he served every day were the neighbors on this street, then Yukihira Soma's vision and cooking skills would most likely remain stagnant. Young eagles always need to leave the protection of their elders in order to truly take to the sky. After seeing Seiya's true strength today, Yukihira Joichiro even thought that Wenrin Kingying would choose to return to his hometown. He also saw through this, so he gave Seiya a chance to hone his skills alone. Before, he was already slightly inferior to Wenrin Kingying in the daily business competition, but he didn't expect that now he was even one step behind the other in the progress of educating his children. Yukihira Joichiro wrote 2 letters, one for Yukihira Soma and the other signed Sanemi Joichiro. The recipient of the letter was Nakare Senziman, the current commander of Tatsuki Academy. After leaving one letter behind and mailing the other, Yukihira Joichiro, with Yukihira Soma still toiling away, simply packed his belongings and quietly left the restaurant. "Dad, please try this seafood fried rice for me." Early in the morning, after a long night of simmering himself, Soma finally finished making seafood fried rice that he was satisfied with. He brought the steaming hot dish to his father, who had also tasted Seiya's fried rice, and asked him to review it. However, when he arrived at Yukihira Joichiro's room, he was shocked to discover that his father was not there. A letter had been left on the table nearby. The letter was quite concise and intriguing. It explained that a friend of Yukihira's was opening a restaurant but was short of a chef, so he needed help. In the letter, Joichiro recommended Tatsuki Gakuen to Soma, stating that it had a concentration of talented chefs of his and Seiya's age. If Soma truly wanted to become a true chef, Tatsuki Gakuen was the best place to go. Looking at the letter from Yukihira Joichiro, Soma Yukihira was stunned for a long time. He had never imagined that his father would pull the same tricks as Aunt Wenrin, leaving the family restaurant to him while he went abroad to work as a chef. Yukihira Soma was indeed very interested in the Tatsuki Gakuen mentioned in Yukihira Joichiro's letter, the cradle of genius chefs. However, before doing so, he felt he needed to redeem himself first. After all, if he couldn't even dominate this street, how could he even talk about conquering Tatsuki Gakuen, known as the cradle of geniuses? Chapter 373 Should I go to Tatsuki Academy for further studies? Yukihira Soma felt no sadness at Yukihira Joichiro's sudden departure. The two, who had a seemingly unrelated father-son relationship, felt that the son had grown up and was now capable of standing on his own. The other, however, felt that his father was old enough to take care of himself, and he now had more ambitious goals than his father. After all, his father had only left home temporarily, not permanently, and with his abilities, he was more than capable of running the family restaurant. Regardless of whether he went to Tatsuki Academy or not, it was almost time for the restaurant to open, and he had almost used up all the ingredients last night, so it was necessary to restock to avoid affecting today's business. Yukihira Soma had just left when he saw Seiya, who was also preparing to leave. Their purpose was the same, to visit the morning market to buy the best wholesale ingredients. Whether it was vegetables or seafood, freshly picked or caught early in the morning, they were bound to be the freshest. Yukihira Soma had almost used up all the ingredients in the restaurant because of the internal competition last night. Seiya also had to buy some fresh ingredients in order to reopen the store today. Since they were usually responsible for the purchase of the store, they were quite familiar with the place. Soma Yukihira even chatted with Seiya halfway through the trip. Seiya, have you heard of Tatsuki Academy? My dad told me that there seem to be a lot of great chefs who are about our age there. Since the two grew up together and lived very close to each other, they have always attended the same school. Soma Yukihira is still unsure whether Tatsuki Academy is really as great as his dad said, but he feels that if he drags Seiya along, then his future academy life will definitely not be too boring. Tatsuki Seiryo Culinary Academy is a prestigious culinary academy, often referred to as Tatsuki Gakun, as the most renowned culinary academy in the country. Its students almost always come from culinary families or from families involved in large-scale culinary industries. Despite this, the academy's graduation rate consistently remains below 10%. Tatsuki Gakun adheres to survival of the fittest philosophy, with 99% of its students recruited solely to hone the 1% who graduate. However, it's precisely these demanding requirements that have created Tatsuki Gakun's immense brand value. Graduating from Tatsuki Gakun guarantees a lifetime of culinary fame. After hearing Seiya's explanation, Soma, standing beside him, was stunned. He had assumed his friend, like him, was completely clueless about the so-called Tatsuki Gakun, but he hadn't anticipated that Seiya not only knew about Tatsuki Gakun, but knew far more than he had imagined. Where did you hear all this? How come I didn't know anything about it before? Seiya rolled his eyes at the surprised Soma Yukihira beside him. Come on, Tatsuki Gakun is incredibly famous in the culinary world, even considered a culinary mecca for the younger generation. It's not like my family doesn't have internet access, so it's normal for me to know all this. But besides beating your dad every day and inventing bizarre dishes, do you really have room for anything else? Despite his words, Seiya hadn't actually researched Tatsuki Gakun since arriving in this world. With his previous culinary skills, passing the entrance exam was practically impossible. As for the information he just revealed, it was all from watching Shokugeki no Soma. A rare anime-themed food show, Shokugeki no Soma boasts a highly erotic style and features revealing clothing, making it a huge hit at the time. Unfortunately, Seiya, not particularly interested in food anime, didn't watch much of the show back then. So long ago, he barely even remembered the show's content. He vaguely remembered the girls' moans being alluring, big, and white. My dad wants me to visit Tatsuki Academy. Are you interested? As you said, the students there are all talented chefs, so studying there wouldn't be too boring, right? Yukihira Soma's question sank Seiya into deep thought, internally debating whether to attend Tatsuki Academy. Since sharing the power of Seiya from another world, his improved physical condition has led to rapid advancements in his culinary skills. However, his understanding of cooking remains fragmented. His stepmother had left him recipes, but a chef who only knew how to follow them would have to surpass himself and surpass the achievements of his predecessors. If the techniques and culinary skills of the dark cuisine world were truly so impressive, they wouldn't have been defeated by the culinary master Liu Enxing. Working in isolation isn't the way to go, only through continuous learning, emulating the strengths of others to overcome one's own shortcomings, can one truly refine one's culinary skills. Seiya's family tradition primarily focuses on culinary traditions, but just as cuisine transcends national boundaries, so does culinary skill. Even if one doesn't learn, gaining a deep understanding of cooking styles from other regions will not only allow for learning from their strengths and weaknesses, but will also allow for future encounters with Western-style culinary experts. The 10 great masters of Tatsuki encompass a wide range of cuisines, so if one wishes to gain experience, attending Tatsuki Academy isn't a bad idea. As for why Seiya hesitates despite the numerous advantages, it's primarily due to his identity. Thanks to his adopted mother, he only recently learned that he is a descendant of the dark cuisine world. While both Cooking Master Boy and Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma are food anime, they shouldn't be set in the same universe. Yet, their worldviews have been merged into one. As a culinary mecca for today's younger generation, Totsuki Gakuen holds a significant reputation and standing in the culinary world. No matter how you look at it, it should be on the side of justice, right? In a fantasy novel, Totsuki Gakuen would be a sacred place for cultivating immortality, and the 10 greatest of Totsuki would be the so-called saints and daughters. Is it really appropriate for a descendant of the demonic path to wander around in a respectable training institution? Hey, what are you thinking? Tell me, do you want to come with me to Totsuki Gakuen to take the entrance exam? Just give me a straight answer, Yukihira Soma questioned the pondering Seiya as they walked. However, he soon realized that Seiya beside him not only ignored him, but also developed a very grim expression. Chapter 374 Seiya, don't treat me like the idiot over there. Hey, you can't be that serious, can you? Even if you don't want to go with me to Totsuki Academy for the exam, you can't be that angry, right? Seeing Seiya's sullen expression, Soma Yukihira thought he was angry with him. However, Seiya ignored him and even broke into a jog. Idiot, why do you care about Totsuki now? If you don't run faster, our house will be robbed. Soma Yukihira was initially confused by Seiya's words. However, after he and Seiya jogged for several hundred meters, he finally noticed that several construction teams wearing hard hats had appeared in front of their 2 restaurants. At this moment, Soma Yukihira was in no mood to pay attention to how Seiya could see so far. When he saw a curvaceous woman in a black office suit standing next to the construction workers, he immediately shouted in anger, "It's the woman who came to our shop before. She said she was from an urban planning company and seemed to be planning to develop the area nearby. She wanted to buy our land and hoped we would stop operating. But my father and I should have clearly rejected her last time, but I didn't expect this woman to bring a construction team with her." Seeing Seiya and Soma Yukihira rushing back, a woman with long dark purple hair and a proud bust stood in front of them. She pulled out a business card from her cleavage and said to them, "My name is Minazuki, and we've met once before. My purpose this time is the same as before, to buy your land. We parted on bad terms before, and I thought you might be dissatisfied with the purchase price I offered, so this time I come with full sincerity." Looking at the alluring and impressive figure of Minazuki before him, Soma Yukihira was completely unmoved. He reached out and swatted the business card she offered him away, then bluntly declared, "How many times do you have to tell me this before you understand? No matter how much money you offer, we're not closing. Our shop has been here for years. It's not about the money, it's about people wanting our food, and that's why we'll keep it open." Hearing Soma Yukihira's words, Minazuki didn't insist, but continued, "That's true, but I remember you said last time that if you can't serve the food our customers want, you'll close down, right? Well, today I'm going to be your guest and try your food, and according to the agreement, if you don't satisfy me, you'll close down, right?" It was a clear provocation. The woman before him might have large breasts, but she clearly didn't have much brains. Seiya was about to object to such an outrageous agreement. After all, in his opinion, if he lost, he'd have to close down. But what good would winning do him? Would it just prove that his shop was truly amazing? However, before Seiya could even say anything, the overly enthusiastic Yukihira Soma, upon hearing what the other party said, had already stepped forward and confidently accepted the challenge. Upon hearing Yukihira Soma's answer without hesitation, Minazuki laughed so hard that his face shook with laughter, while Seiya, standing beside him, was speechless and covered his face with his hands. Wait a minute. How could that idiot agree to that? That's his business, not mine. I'm not as naive as him and agree to such an unequal bet. Minazuki, who had been confident of winning, was visibly taken aback when he heard Seiya's words. Then he looked at Seiya and said, "Are you also the owner's child?" "No, I'm from the one next door. The one at the Wenrin restaurant." Minazuki followed Seiya's direction and looked towards their restaurant. Then, puzzled, he asked, "Didn't that restaurant close down a long time ago?" Minazuki's company had just arrived a few days ago to acquire land nearby. However, she had seen the Wenrin restaurant's flower restaurant temporarily closed, so she assumed it was closed. She had assumed it would be a no-brainer. "Seiya, it's not closed. It's just temporarily closed for repairs." When Minazuki came to acquire the land, Seiya had been in seclusion, integrating the shared power into his culinary skills, which was why the restaurant had been closed. This led Minazuki to believe their restaurant had long since closed down. After all, before arriving to acquire the land, she had done some business research. From what she knew, this renowned restaurant had been declining since the departure of its head chef a month earlier, and was already on the verge of bankruptcy. Because the restaurant has been closed, I was struggling to contact the owner. Since you're a child of this family, it's much easier. How about you, like that red-haired brat, accept my challenge? If you can't satisfy me with your food, suspend business now and sell the land to a company. When Minazuki said this to Seiya with her arms folded and an air of superiority, Seiya glared at her as if she were an idiot and said, "Didn't I tell you I refuse such a foolish bet?" Both Minazuki and Soma, standing beside her, were visibly surprised by Seiya's blunt refusal. After frowning, Minazuki looked at Seiya provocatively and said, "Aren't you confident in your cooking? It's not a question of confidence or not, but do I have reason to bet with you? If I lose, then my restaurant will be closed down, but what if you lose? What do you have to pay for it? You can't say that the price of your loss is that you won't force us to close down, right? Now we live in a society ruled by law. Even if you use all kinds of tricks, or even do some dirty tricks that affect our business, can you still collect it by force? Since you want to have a bet, then at least put up equal chips, and don't treat me as a fool over there. Let me think about it. If I lose, I will close down my restaurant as you said, but if you lose, I won't force anything. Just use the purchase price of my restaurant to pay for the cooking I make." Minazuki seemed surprised by Seiya's request. Seiya looked about the same age as Soma Yukihira, yet she hadn't expected him to be so demanding. After a brief hesitation, Minazuki finally gritted her teeth and agreed. She didn't think a family restaurant in a remote alley could possibly serve anything decent. Besides, Seiya and Soma Yukihira looked so young. Chapter 375 Meatless Meat Dishes. Minazuki believed that as a company executive, she had already tasted a fair amount of high-end cuisine. She had even had the privilege of dining with her boss, even dishes prepared by graduates of Tatsuki Academy. In her view, truly delicious food came from high-end restaurants, where only the cuisine of the upper class could truly be enjoyed. As for those backstreet restaurants, they only appealed to the unsophisticated, and it was clearly impossible for them to satisfy her taste buds. Furthermore, while the profession of chef wasn't directly linked to age, it was certainly closely tied to experience. Seiya and Soma Yukihira looked like little more than 15-year-olds. Even if they had been learning the art of cooking since they were old enough to understand, how many years had passed since then? Of course, most importantly, Minazuki's provocation to Seiya and Soma Yukihira was due to his own preparations. "Since you've all agreed to my bet, my challenge this time is simple. I want a delicious, juicy meat dish. There's no limit to the type of meat. As long as you can create a dish that meets my standards, you'll pass." Meat is arguably one of the most commonly used ingredients in cooking, and with no restrictions on cooking methods or types of meat, this challenge is quite broad and open. Even Yukihira Soma, who initially expected to be deliberately challenged, was taken aback by Minazuki's request. He hadn't expected him to be so easy to deal with. However, just as Minazuki presented the challenge, and Seiya and Yukihira Soma each opened their own shop and prepared a dish requested by the other party, they were startled by the hustle and bustle inside. "I see. No wonder you agreed so readily. You've been preparing for this for a long time. No wonder the wholesale market said they had no fresh meat when we went shopping today." Whether it was Seiya's restaurant or Soma's, the meat in both had been wasted, either maliciously rendered stinking or simply thrown into the trash. Seiya and Soma Yukihira went shopping as usual, but didn't find any fresh meat. They didn't take it too seriously. After all, ingredient suppliers occasionally have these kinds of issues. Meat is a common ingredient in cooking, so both Seiya's and Yukihira's restaurants always have some on hand, so they weren't worried about the performance today. But now, seeing the hustle and bustle in the shop, Seiya and Soma Yukihira suddenly understood why their counterparts were so generous, offering such a seemingly easy proposition. It wasn't that they weren't deliberately trying to make things difficult, but rather that they had been preparing a trap for them. The other party specifically requested meat dishes, but they'd already bought all the meat from their supplier for the day, then destroyed all the meat in their restaurant. How could they possibly serve dishes that met their expectations? "I don't understand what you're talking about. Anyway, I'm a customer now, and I've already ordered. If you can't serve dishes that meet my expectations, then there's no point in keeping this restaurant open, right?" Minazuki sat down in the restaurant, folding her plump thighs together and removing her sunglasses, revealing a smug look on her face. She wouldn't admit to her actions, of course. A sparsely decorated restaurant, a young chef, and the need to prepare delicious, juicy meat dishes without meat, these three factors combined to convince Minezuki to accept Seiya's bet. As the saying goes, a good cook can't cook without rice. Even the best of culinary prowess couldn't create a meat dish without meat, right? Seeing Seiya and Soma Yukihira with ugly and troubled expressions, Minezuki glanced at the Wenrin restaurant and couldn't help but feel relieved. As she said, she had always thought that Seiya's Wenrin restaurant was a restaurant that was about to go bankrupt, so her main target this time was actually the Yukihira restaurant, which was still doing a booming business. After disposing of all the meat ingredients in the Yukihira restaurant, Minezuki was worried that Soma Yukihira would borrow meat ingredients from the restaurant next door, so she asked her men to destroy the meat ingredients in both stores. And now it seems that her previous decision was right. Now, no matter whether it is this Wenrin restaurant or the Yukihira restaurant, as long as they can't serve dishes that meet her requirements, they will have to close down. After Soma Yukihira took a look at the ingredients purchased today and then looked at the baking that was originally going to be for breakfast, an idea suddenly came to his mind, and then he rushed into the kitchen with a look of confidence. Seeing Soma Yukihira's confident expression, Minezuki, who had been sitting with his legs crossed, suddenly panicked. He turned to the bodyguard behind him and asked, "Are you sure you've destroyed all the meat in their restaurant?" "Yes. Beef, pork, chicken, and even fish. We've made sure we've cleaned it all up." The bodyguard's confirmation brightened Minezuki's expression, but she still felt a tinge of unease at Soma Yukihira's confidence. To alleviate this anxiety, Minezuki crossed her arms again, plunging her already impressive cleavage even deeper. She looked at Seiya with a feigned casualness and said, "Keeping customers waiting isn't the right way for a restaurant to treat guests, is it? That red-haired brat has already started preparing the food. What are you waiting for?" Honestly, even if Soma Yukihira actually prepared a dish that met her expectations, Minezuki wouldn't be overly worried. Regardless of whether it was good or not, even if she failed, at most she would have failed to complete the task assigned to her by the company. But unlike the young and foolish boy Soma Yukihira, Seiya has made a bet. If Seiya wins, she will have to pay for the cooking fee equivalent to the land purchase price of the famous restaurant. The company cannot cover such a large amount of money, so in the end she has to pay for it out of her own pocket. The reason why she dared to bet so big is because Minezuki was sure that under such extreme conditions, Seiya could not cook the dishes that met her requirements. But just when she saw Soma Yukihira walking into the kitchen with a confident look on his face, Minezuki began to panic. She is now very worried that Seiya, like Soma Yukihira, has come up with a cooking method to overcome this problem. Seiya agreed to Minezuki's bet because since his mother returned to her hometown, the funds she left behind have been running out due to the losses of the store for many days. And if he wants to reopen the business, the cost of purchasing ingredients will also cost money. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.